Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? Sorry about the late start as always, but anyway, good to see everyone. Welcome to the Sunday live stream where I talk about photography. We get together as a community and see what's new, what's been happening. And it's Halloween this week, so I got my annual Star Trek jacket on. This is from the Enterprise series, the prequel to the original series, I guess. So if you guys are Trek fans, you know what I'm talking about. If not, you know, I'm just trying to be in the spirit of the holiday season. So, gosh, I haven't worn um, this outfit like this sweater. Everything kind of mashed up, I guess. But this sweater, I got this sweater in 1999, and it was kind of cool to bring this out again. So I see Eric's here, Wayne is here, and Jeff Painter. Good to see you, Darko and Semjon. Good to see everyone. So it's only 4 hour difference. That's good. So how's that TG7 coming along, Jeff? That's a great little camera. I'm so happy you got that because I think you're going to get a lot of use out of it. I wish I used my TG5 more, but I did take it out. I've been taking it out more recently, uh, and really enjoying, what that camera can do. It's great, great little pocket camera. You don't even have to put it in your bag. You just grab it and put it in your pocket on the way out. Um, and I saw a rumor on 43 Rumors site, something about when Emily was on live with the Claires, there was a image there that said OM5 Mark II, like it was some kind of teaser for what might be coming out next. And I think it's been debunked left and right by both Emily and uh, the Claires, but who knows? Maybe they're hiding the fact that maybe really one is coming out. We'll find out eventually, right? Um, yeah, the TG7 is brilliant. Yeah, it is. It is. Let me pull up my chat window so I can pull up. So yeah, and you got such a good deal on it. Man, if I could get one for 350 bucks, and I know that you did it in pounds, so that'd be closer to 400 for me, but that that would be really tempting, because it does have slightly better features than the TG5. You know, specifically, what I wanted is the time delay for the focus stacking and other features in the camera. But also has USB-C, which is a nice plus. Not that it really gives any advantage, but you can, just like in the TG6, but not the TG5, you can charge the camera and use it at the same time through that plug. So that's that's the key thing I'm missing is the time delay on the focus stacking and the uh, charge and use at the same time because I would use it as a webcam instead of the cameras I have now because it's so small, right, and has great image quality. But anyhow, Wayne's asking, are they doing an announcement this week? I have no idea. No idea. I read the same sites everyone else does for information. I'm not like that. Forget his name. The guy that runs the rumor sites. He gets all the leads, right? All the rumors. And Semjon says, got really frustrated with how soft the 100 to 400 was until I realized the previous owner left a cheap, dirty UV filter on. I thought, yeah, you're not an idiot. Trust me. The same thing happened to my friend Shri. Uh, he bought the 300 f4 on my recommendation, and he bought it off eBay, off one of my links that I gave him directly to buy it because I thought that was a good deal. And I was really worried he got a bad copy, so I fussed with it for about 10 minutes until I realized it's a freaking UV filter on the front of it. And once I took that off, the magic of the 300 f4 came back in full force. So I was really so relieved for both of us, because whenever I make a recommendation or suggest something, I really give you my honest opinion. You know, I try to give you what I think is a good deal or a good product, and 300 f4, I have no hesitation recommending. And the one really almost all of the Olympus lenses, I would not hesitate to recommend. The only ones that I feel are a little bit weak, and and it's by design, is like the 12 to 200. Uh, that's just too big of a range to cover in a single lens. And it's what, 24 to 400 equivalent. So you get it. I mean, it's a great lens for what it is, but I think they're trying to do too much. Um, and I haven't been a fan of the 14 to 150. I think the copy that I had, I sold it. The copy that I had may have been bad, but if that's not the case, if that's typical of that lens, uh, was not a fan. Um, I mean, it did great close up, but it was at the distances, zoomed all the way out to 150, that I felt like the background blur, the bokeh or whatever, was just mushy. And even what was in focus looked mushy to me. So uh, I went back to just using my 40 to 150, which isn't a lot better, but it was a tiny bit better. Uh, so I don't know what happened to my 14 to 150, because I thought it was doing better before. Like, I was getting decent results from it. But anyhow, super zooms in general, regardless of brand, always have compromises to the image quality at whatever range they design it for. And I try to avoid them now. I'm not, I just don't think it's kind of like this. This is kind of the phases I've been going through with lenses, right? When I first started, I was doing mostly adapting vintage primes and things to my Nikon and to my Sony. I'm not, you know, the Nikon I didn't have to adapt because I was buying Nikon glass, right? Vintage Nikon glass. But adapting them to my Sony at the time, because it was really a cheap way to get into some longer glass, faster glass, and there's a bit of nostalgia in the images as well. And then I got into Micro Four Thirds after I got out of Nikon, and I found the lenses from Olympus, just delivered plain and simple. They were just so good. The 14 to 42 Easy kit lens was my very first lens, and that thing to this day, it's just tack sharp. I mean, I couldn't ask more from a lens in terms of sharpness and performance. I wish it was faster, of course. They got the 12 to 45 f4, they got the 12 to 40 f2.8, which I have. But in terms of, size and performance, I can't think of any lens that does better than that in the range that it gives. I'd say it even outperforms the Leica lens on my LX100 Mark II, except for the aperture, right? It's not quite as fast. So ultimately, you get better images with the LX100, but because you can shoot at lower ISOs or faster shutter speeds. So for me, I'm getting better images from my LX100 than with that kit lens. Ah, but I digress. The point I'm trying to make is I started buying just mostly native glass, right? Olympus for Olympus cameras. And I wanted the zooms and primes. And I felt like taking out a zoom, and I did this with the Nikon too. I had a 28 to 300 Tamron when I was shooting a Nikon. It's like, I want a lens when I go out. I want to do everything, you know? I want to be ready for anything. And it was great for a while, but then, you get really critical of the performance of the lens after a while. At least I did. And I said, okay, I want to shoot some primes. I want no distortion. I want sharp corners, all of that stuff, right? And that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like I shoot prime lenses, and the occasional zoom, for convenience, like the 14 to 42 Easy kit lens. Um, That's one of the few zooms I feel like there's very little compromise in the versatility it gives you with the range. It's a normal range, 28 to 84. Uh, it's worth the trade-off for the performance that a prime would give you. But I found, when you stop the lens down f4 to f5.6, I don't see a lot of difference between that lens and my primes, other than, all the things that go along with having a faster aperture that a prime would offer. So that's probably the only exception, but uh, more recently I just picked up, it came in Friday afternoon, my Pentax Monochrome. It's the K33 Monochrome. I got such a good deal on it. I wouldn't have bought it if it was at the regular price, because they're selling between 1850 and $2,000, right in that range. 1850, 1950, right in that range. Uh, but I got mine for like 1570, I think, plus tax, right? But 1570. I just could not. If I'd have waited one more day, I could have got it for under 1500. If I waited one more day, I didn't, but you never know what's going to happen, right? With sales and things. Um, if I'd have waited one more day, I could have saved like another $100. It's still kind of stressing me a little bit. Closer to $150 I could have saved. But it was too late. It came in, and ultimately it's a good deal. I guess I could show it to you. It's this one. And the only lens I have for Pentax is the 14 or 18 to 55 kit lens that I was using on my Pentax K10D. An old vintage CCD camera, great camera. Uh, so I put this on. This is the DA version, digital version. So it's a good lens, but it's nowhere near as good as the kit lens from Olympus. I can tell you that. I've noticed that wide open, the lens is pretty soft, and relative to the Olympus lens again. I have to stop it down to like f8 to get it kind of almost as sharp as the Olympus, but it's still not quite as sharp. So it's a couple of issues. I'm still struggling a bit with the autofocus on this and dealing with the exposure. That's a me problem, not a camera problem at this point. So I'm not blaming the camera at all. But yeah, it exposes a little bit brighter, like everyone says. If you've watched any videos on this camera, everyone says it's brighter, right? Because there's no filters, color filter array on top. So I'm dealing a little bit with that, and I'm dealing a little bit with the autofocus. The other problem I'm having with exposure is, uh, I'm not used to looking through an actual optical viewfinder anymore. I mean, I do it on my film cameras time to time, but for the most part, I'm not chimping, right? I'm taking the picture because, with digital cameras, you really don't need to chimp because you have the electronic EVF and you take the picture and you know what it's going to kind of look like before you take it. So I'm not used to chimping my images, so to speak, right? Like looking at them right after I take it. I'm just taking them. So I'm going along for about maybe a half an hour shooting with this. And then I realized that I dialed in a negative 1.7 exposure compensation because I was checking, for whatever reason, I was checking the images. I was like, why are these so dark? And then I looked at the display. So there's some getting used to with this camera. Not turning the dial inadvertently, checking the settings before I shoot, that kind of thing. But I'm really happy with the images. Um, see, now it's not. What mode am I in? Oh, I'm in. See something? Yeah. See, this is the thing. Like the exposure compensation. If you look at the back, you have the EV meter here. You'll see it changing here. Whereas like on the Olympus cameras, you get a number in addition to that, right? It'll say -1, -2, etc. This one is just a little graphic bar. So I missed it. Because I will look at my settings time to time, but I missed it. when I was looking, because I was looking at the aperture, shutter speed, ISO, but I missed the exposure compensation because it's just a graphic. Just in my dying eyes, it's barely readable for me unless I'm holding it like, way out like this. But if I'm holding it like this, I can really only see the biggest numbers. Everything else is kind of blurry. But anyhow, so because someone pointed out that one of the comparisons I posted on my community page was not fair because this one was underexposed and I pushed it in post, etc. Which yeah, that's true. But my goal really was just to share as many pictures as I can because I've only had it really for one day of shooting, and I only shot for a couple of hours with it. A couple hours on Friday when it came in the afternoon, and a couple hours on Saturday when I went out with the photo club. God, I screwed that up. If anybody is here from my photo club, I'm really sorry. I put the wrong pin on the map, so everybody went to the wrong location. Oh, so I was driving everywhere trying to find people, miles and miles in different directions. And then and then when I got back to where we were supposed to meet, uh, because I couldn't tell people where to go, they went, some people went down, like 3 people went down the path that I didn't want to go down that day. I mean, it's a nice path, but I wanted to get everybody down to the water, to the reservoir where the fog was and all of that. So I walked, God, I felt like I walked another mile or two trying to find people down this trail. And then by the time I got back to start shooting for myself, right? Uh, it was about, I only had about 30 minutes, maybe less, certainly less than an hour of shooting. And as always, half my time is spent helping other people with their settings and composition, all of that. So I only got a few images off myself from this camera, but and I did a little bit more last night actually with some selfies. Uh, and I need to get the remote because I tried using the app and the app works. It's a little flaky connecting sometimes. I need to get the workflow so that I can connect to it quickly. It took me several attempts to connect it. The first time it connected like this, but then when I tried to reconnect it after offloading some images, it wouldn't connect again. So my workflow somewhere in that process is off, that the camera and the phone are not communicating because I'm doing something in the wrong order, I assume. So like I said, every time there's a problem with the camera or a problem with any pictures I take, I always assume first it's a me problem. It's a photographer problem. Rarely is it the camera's fault if something goes wrong. At least that's been my experience so far with my Sony, Nikon, and Olympus and Panasonic. So Pentax is relatively new for me. I have the old one, right, which is fine, but this is my first modern Pentax, and I have a modern Fujifilm camera, the XH2, but that one, and there's a lot. If you're into Fuji, there's a lot of talk about all the different issues going on recently with autofocus, now with the app not connecting and giving errors, et cetera, et cetera. They're having all kinds of issues right now. I haven't updated my firmware, so I'm fine with how the autofocus is working now. So I haven't touched it. I'm still like on the 1.5, like it's over a year old, the firmware. And there's been multiple updates since then, which I haven't touched because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Same thing with my Olympus OM1. I'm still on 1.5. Now, I haven't heard any issues with version 1.6, but again, eventually I'm going to get around to testing methodology so I can compare version 1.5 to 1.6. So that's when I'll update. It's after I kind of get this methodology down. Okay, so I'm going to talk more about the monochrome Pentax and show you some images and give you my initial impressions of using a monochrome sensor. But let me get some of the chat. I can see you guys have really been throwing them out here. Let's see. Oh, Darko says if the OM5 Mark II with bird eye detect tracking, I'm back. Oh, okay. I would add if they could make it a metal body again, that would be great. Or at least the top and bottom plates. You know, the middle can be just a shell, plastic shell with a alloy frame, but it'd be nice if the top and bottom plates were metal. And Eric says, Rob, if you find a GR3, 3X, HDF, yeah, there's like so many versions of it on a good sale. Can you link to me sometime this week before Thursday? I'm ordering it on the way. I'm ordering it one way or another. Okay, that morning, but I'd like to uh, help your page out. Okay, I appreciate that. I'll look into it. Of the four that you mentioned, which one do you want the most? So I can kind of concentrate my effort a little bit. Um, but I'll definitely hit you up. I appreciate that. Um, and then Sam John says, still not sure if I keep the 100-400. I don't think I have much use for it. The 4152.8 with the 1.4 is enough for local duck pond. I'd rather look for another prime for street or architecture. Um, I don't know, if you got the deal on it for $9.99, I would just keep it if you got that deal, or if you bought it used, just keep it. Uh, I mean, I appreciate that the 4150 with the teleconverter is a great combination, but it's no 100-400, and if you got it for that $9.99 price, I think you should keep it and just add on later, whatever primes you wanna get. That's what I would do, because that focal length you can use it for landscapes, things well, you could do that with your 40-150. Tough call. I mean, if you can get all your money back, and you can think about it again later, but the deal that they have on it now is really good if you buy brand new, and if you bought it used, you can buy it used again later for the same price or less, right? So, yeah, it's a tough call. Personally, I would keep it. I just like the all-in-one zoom rather than doing the teleconverter route with the 40-150. I think the 40-150 with the 2.8 is really, because what does that make at 1.4? So that adds another, I can't do math in my head anymore. 210 equivalent, not equivalent, 210 millimeters. Yeah, that's half of the 400. And you're going to be wishing for that 400 sometimes, I think. Okay, in Nikon world, the kit lens 55-200 VR is quite good for a kit street on my D5. Yes, and the 70-300 VR is really good. Uh, I'd say better than the 55-200. Rob, for your Nikon DF, do you have the 35DX 1.8? I have the no, I have the 35 f2 AFD. So I have the D lens, which is a little bit more vintage than the 35 1.8. The 35 1.8 I think is probably sharper and faster than my 35D, but I don't shoot with it enough. And the DF is a 16 megapixel sensor, so the difference between my Nikon D lens and a Nikon DX lens, it's going to be very subtle, right? On the high resolution images or sensors, uh, like the 24 megapixel or the 20 megapixel D500 in your case, the pixel density is a lot higher, and it's going to pick up the defects that the Nikon 35mm AFD is going to have, and it's not going to be anywhere near as sharp as the 35DX. So in your situation, if you're thinking about that lens, the 35DX is a much better choice for about the same money. Last time I checked, which was years ago. In my case, the 35D makes more sense because I also shoot Nikon film cameras, and it works on that camera as well. Uh, so given my cameras, the DF and my Nikon film cameras that use the screw drive, the 35 f2D makes more sense for me. And the fact that the pixel density on Nikon DF is much bigger, probably double what the D500 that you have is. So I'm not seeing all of the defects of that older lens on my camera anywhere near as much as you would see it on your camera. Particularly wide open, the softness that you get with the 35 AFD 2.0. Because I can see a little bit of softness even on my DF, but it's not bad. Just a little slide on the sharpener and post, and it's good enough, right? But on your camera, a D500, and if any of you have a D71, 72, any of the 24 megapixel APS-C cameras from Nikon, you're definitely going to get much better results with the DX version. Okay, I extrapolated a lot from your question. I know you asked me if I have that lens. It's a yes or no question, right? Yeah or no. No, I don't have it. But maybe I read too much into your question, but just for the sake of I don't know, I just tend to ramble. Okay, Darko says, I still have one Pentax lens left, a vintage 28 Super Takumar 2.8, which would be awesome on your Pentax monochrome. Yeah, I'd have to give that some thought. I'm going to start with primarily my first lens that I'm buying for my monochrome is the 35 millimeter. Well, God, you'd think Olympus has really long names, man. You should see Pentax. It's their SMC HDDA 35 millimeter f2.8 macro limited lens. So I think I got that right. It's a lot of things in there, but um, I tried to find as many reviews as I could on it, and primarily the pentaxforums.com site seemed to have the most in-depth review with samples, but everyone else that I could find, and I can't name them, did seem to concur with their findings, and I would I would say it's probably one of their sharpest lenses, as far as I know. Now, if you guys know any better, because I'm not a Pentaxian yet, my cred has gone up a little bit, according to one person, my Pentaxian credentials. But I'm far from being an expert at Pentax lenses, so I'm relying on uh, mostly online reviews. I didn't really look at any YouTube videos about it. Maybe I'll be the first to make one. I don't know if there is any, but uh, so that's what I ordered. And the next lens that I'm considering is the SMC 55 millimeter f1.4 DA Star. Now, the only criticism people are giving that lens, it seems like, is that it's slow to autofocus, like by a tenth of a second, compared to, say, the DA, or I'm sorry, the FA 50 millimeter f1.4. But ultimately, I think it's going to be a sharper lens. And I'm focusing on sharpness because I love the pixel peep, number one. But number two is I want to give the sensor in this camera every advantage I can. So when I'm doing comparison, because I just know how good the lenses are from Olympus. So when I'm doing comparisons, I don't want to attribute or I want to have a level playing field as possible. So I also bought a Pentax to micro four thirds adapter so that when I do the comparisons, I can put the same lens on. Now I get the field of view will be a little different, but when we're just looking at the tones of the image, right? Field of view is not quite as critical. If we're going to look at definition like resolution and things, then yeah, field of view will be different. But I'm not too concerned about field of view. I want to give the camera, I'm sorry, I'm not too concerned about resolution. I'm more concerned about the tonality differences that I'm seeing between the two cameras. And there are some differences. Like I said, I'll get into it. Okay. Uh, hey, Paul, good to see you. I was waiting for that email from you about Joe Edelman closing the thing down. You seem to imply there might have been some drama with that. I can't imagine. Just- But I mean, I understand why he closed it. I mean, it's like less than 200 members, and when he's got hundreds of thousands of subscribers and uh, audience around the world, it seemed like an unnecessary uh, addition to his daily life workflow of managing his social media. Okay, the Pentax K3 looks great at that price. I found a good deal for a beautiful Nikon ZF, but I can't justify another body currently, especially not in a different format, maybe in a year or two. Yeah, the Nikon ZF just didn't grow on me. I mean, I was gassing for it when it first came out, right? And then somehow it just didn't appeal to me anymore. Uh, I I mean, it's still a beautiful camera. It has that very vintage Nikon, look to it. DSLR, or not DSLR, but SLR look to it, like the old FMs and EMs, which were basically the same camera. Um, but I don't know why. I don't know why. What I don't know why that, because I got the worst gas of just about anybody, and for whatever reason, that camera, there's just no want for it. Uh, I do want a Z8 though, bad. Oh man, a Z8. Well, eventually I'm gonna get a Z8, but the ZF just didn't appeal to me. But the Z8 definitely. The Z6 III, no appeal there. I think it's the 24 megapixel sensor, because I had that when I was in my D750, and it's a great sensor. But I want to try their new one, you know, the new 47 megapixel that they have. And I can get a Z7 with that, basically that same sensor, and that's tempting too. So I might have to step to a Z7 first before I go to the Z8. But the Z8 has the ergonomics and handling. It feels so good in your hands. And I love the button placements and everything about that camera ergonomically, and and also aesthetically. I think it's a much better looking camera than the Z7s and Z6s. They don't appeal to me aesthetically. Uh, but the Z8 does. It just looks like a workhorse camera. Like this is a camera you're gonna take out, and you're serious, right? You mean business when you go out with a Z8. Uh, one day, it's still in the 3,500 price range, and at that price bracket, I'm looking at like the GFX, 100, or use the Leica, right? Ah, so let's see. And Paul said, I'd love that Nikon as well. I really need to investigate it. Right now, I'm concentrating on getting the most out of what I have. Absolutely. You know, when we get to the image comparisons, you'll see that things are so subtle. We're talking very, very minor differences. The only reason people, I think, really need to upgrade the camera is not because of image quality, but it's more about the features on the camera, right? And the ergonomics and how it feels, and do you connect with it? Can you navigate the menus? All of that stuff, right? uh, So, for example, OM1, if you don't do birding or wildlife photography, there's really not much reason to upgrade to that unless you need the longer battery life and the super build quality. I mean, there's lots of reasons to get a flagship OM1, but I typically tell people if you're not birding, get the OM5 or something else. It's really a uh, wildlife camera. That's where it excels anyway, and it's worth the upgrade if you're into that genre. But if you're into landscape or just architectural street photography, the OM5, EM5, EM10 Mark II, all of these cameras are perfectly fine for your genre. Um, okay, and Paul said, I updated my Panasonic firmware the day it came out. I wanted the advantages of connectivity. Okay, I'm not as familiar with the updates that Panasonic does. One day though, I mean, my gas for the S1R is tempering a bit for now, mainly because the price went up on them. I mean, I was able to get them under $1,500 regularly. You would see them under $1,500, and I was waiting for a deal, and I passed on a couple of really good deals. I could have got one for 1,000. I could have got another one for 1,100. But right now, they're starting at $1,500 and going up from there. So I'm like, you know, at that price point, I can get a Leica SL2. I could have got a Leica SL2 in like new condition for $2,200, and they're asking like on average about $1,800 to $1,900 for a frickin' Panasonic S1R. Now I get it. The S1R has more features, but it ain't a Leica, you know. It's just not. Uh, and same sensor, all of that, right? More features than the S1R, better ergonomics. There's really almost no reason to get an SL2 over the S1R except for the fact that you have a Leica, and the images are a little bit different. I went into the Leica forums, and there's lots of threads on people comparing the S1R and the Leica SL2 with images, and you can see the difference. You can see the difference because you can mount the same lens on both, right? Uh, not just in the color science. The color science is, not quite as critical, but also in the sharpness. For whatever reason, the SL2 just does a little better with the sharpening. And we're talking like in a blind test, I could probably tell at, pixel peeping, but not like at normal print sizes and things like that. I probably wouldn't be able to tell difference. But what would you do for like 300 more, 400 more? Wouldn't you get the Leica version instead? I don't know. I think I definitely would. So anyway, uh, oh, thanks, Jeff. Oh, it's 1.7 now? I don't even know. Where's my OM1? I thought I was on 1.5, but I might be thinking of my Fuji. Um, oh, I'm on 1.6. Okay. My Fuji is 1.5. This is 1.6. Yeah, there's definitely room for improvement. There always is, but there's very distinct need for a firmware update on the OM1 on my OM1 to 1.7. Uh, Specifically, they were talking about how even though the bird detect box was on the bird, the OM1 could still focus on the background. And I do see that time to time, you know, on certain types of birds. I notice it more on like white egrets. I think that's what they're called. The big white birds that the box will go right around the egret, but then it's focusing back and forth. Now in the blue herons and things, it's not. doesn't do that. So the egret, I think, probably because it's all white, there's less contrast on it, and there's more contrast usually in the brush in the background. So the autofocus sees the bird and then focuses within that box on anything that has the most contrast, right? Which in this case will be the background. But on the blue herons, they're a darker bird and they have a little bit more texture, right? Or differences in the color. So blue herons, I haven't really had any issue with that kind of focusing, where it back focuses on the background. But on the white egrets, definitely I noticed, some issues. So if they fix that and they fix the bird on a stick type stuff where there's, sticks in front of the bird or parts of the bird, it'll focus on the stick instead of the bird itself. I've had trouble with that. So I think that's what the firmware 1.7 is supposed to address, some of those issues. At least that's what's being reported. Okay, so Eric prefers the GR3. Let me write that down. GR3 or the HDF. Okay. HDF, what's that? Isn't that like a glimmer glass or something on it? Yeah. All right, I'll definitely start looking. I have to get a feel for the pricing. If I had been shopping it for it all year, like the S1R, I would definitely have a feel for it. But I'll do my best. I'll do my best. I'll send you a link, and if you can find a better deal than that, then go for it. Never mind my link. Oops, I'm sorry. I meant to see Gordon's post here. Morning, all. First snow in the mountains. Nice. West coast of BC, just a dusting. Keen to get out there for some early winter photos. Yeah. Snow is beautiful, isn't it? Red 35 just did a video with, I think I saw the one where he was comparing it, right? And all the points he made were legit. I'll just reinforce some of the things he said was the image stabilization is definitely better on, say, the 300 f4 and the 150 to 600. Autofocus speed is about the same on those two lenses, the 150 to 600 and the 100 to 400. So the key difference between those lenses, really besides reach, is the image stabilization. It's a huge difference. The image stabilization on the 150 to 600 is right up there with my 300 f4. The key difference between the 300 f4 and the 150 to 600, aside from the obvious prime versus zoom and reach, is the autofocusing speed is much faster. I mean, it's like lightning quick on the 300 f4 versus the 150 to 600, which is fast, but it's not lightning fast like the 300 f4. So my recommendation to everyone has always been get the 300 f4 if you can, over the 150 to 600 or the 100 to 400, if your budget allows. If not, the 100 to 400 is great. It's a great lens. And this side towards screen, hey, how you doing? Good to see you here. And been enjoying your monochrome photos this week. Thanks. Yeah, I just like I said, I got the camera Friday afternoon. I did some pictures of Ellie in the backyard. Then I took it out yesterday for a photo walk in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I did some selfies with just this kit lens. Now I think on Tuesday, my prime lens is supposed to come in, and it's supposed to be a very sharp lens, and that will hopefully eliminate some of the softness I'm seeing from this kit lens compared to, say, the kit lens from the Olympus. Now, of course, and I got the adapter, so I'm going to be comparing same lens on different camera bodies with the obvious difference in field of view, which I talked about, all of that. Okay. And Steve says the 104, I would not part with mine. It's definitely, definitely. I think the story is with the IBIS, the not IBIS, the image stabilization is that when you zoom it beyond a certain point, it goes to lens only stabilization. And when you're zoomed out, say closer to 100 millimeters, it uses both body and uh, whatchamacallit, body and lens combined. So you get that sync IS at the wider angles and then only lens. And honestly, image stabilization, unless you're doing video, right? Video is a different story. You need the best image stabilization possible if you're hand holding for video. You don't really need it so much in bird photography because your shutter speed should be at 1/2000th, 1/4000th, those kind of speeds, and you could turn image stabilization off completely even at those shutter speeds, like at 1/4000th. So don't let my reservations about the image stable or my comments about the image stabilization on the 100 to 400 deter you from that lens. It's a very sharp lens, has a terrific zoom range. It's not too big and bulky for what it does. Relatively fast aperture. Uh, there's nothing to dislike about that lens. The criticism it gets is from people that want to shoot video with it. Yeah, the image stabilization is pretty weak on that compared to all the other image stabilized lenses from Olympus and OM Systems. It's probably the weakest. It's not as good as the 150 to 600, not as good as the 300 f4. Uh, those might be the only other two lenses with image stabilization, come to think of it. But this is my point is, yeah, image stabilization for birding is not that critical. I've done plenty of times I've gone out, turned off image stabilization and still got tack sharp images because my shutter speed is up there. And um, so I wouldn't worry about it. Oh, the side torch screen. As a Pentaxian, welcome. So, yeah, I took your advice from one of your comments. I think it was you. Someone said just get any of the limited primes. So I researched the primes, the limiteds, and yeah, they're good lenses. Build quality, image quality, and they're not too big and bulky, at least not the ones I was looking at. Um, Handmade? Is that I don't yeah, I read that somewhere. I don't know if that's true or not, but they said they're pretty much handcrafted, those lenses. So there's a little bit of heritage there, and a little bit of kind of making it a little bit extra special, right? And Verma says, you might not be a Pentaxian, but I'm looking at that uniform and guessing you visited a Pentaxian. That's hilarious. Um, and Copper Blue says, just got the 100, 400 on ohm system last cashback offer. Lens listed $12.99, discount $11.99 on top of that 400 cashbacks. Yeah, that's a keeper at that price. And Darko says, would you do landscape and non-fast moving wildlife with your monochrome Pentax? Definitely landscape. Uh, and wildlife, I'd have to get a longer lens. I don't know if I'm going to do that. They have some nice long glass for it, but I don't see myself doing wildlife with it. I got an OM1. Wildlife to me is about the colors. Birds are very, very colorful. So in that respect, if all I shot were white egrets all the time or some variation of a white bird, yeah, then I might seriously consider. But a lot of birds, they have such beautiful colors, and I want to capture that. So, yeah, wildlife would be pretty much out. But landscapes, just about any other kind of photography, black and white is perfect for. And Darker says, I'm having gas for the Z6M3, but my wallet won't allow it. Oh my God. You just reminded me of some credit issue I had. If you were in my photo editing live stream, you know what I'm talking about because I got this email just before I started my photo editing live stream about a late payment. I'm like, what the F? I was irate. There's no way I could ever miss a payment ever. Uh anyway, it put me in a bad mood. I'm over it now. I've called the banks and dealt with it the best I can, and we'll see if it gets resolved. It takes months, you know, but oh. So anyhow, Z6 Mark III, I watched a few videos on it. It didn't the camera didn't interest me, so I didn't give it my full attention, anything that I saw or read about it. But ultimately, it's it's a Nikon, right? With great autofocus, great sensor, great color science, great ergonomics. I think the Z6, Z7, the ergonomics are not as good as, say, a Z8, but uh, overall, I wouldn't complain too much about. I don't have too many complaints about Nikon. I shot Nikon for a few years. D750, D7100, D80, D40. All of the all of the sensor formats, APS-C and full frame. And now I have a DF, and I can tell you that Nikon really produces beautiful images, straight out of camera, the JPEGs. And when you process the files, just amazing. But what is the Z6 III going to do for you that whatever you have now does not? That's the question you have to ask yourself before you buy one. Uh, and for most people, the answer is doesn't do much. Now, if you're an enthusiast, hobbyist like me, and you have the budget or the line of credit, oh God, credit. I am so pissed. Um, my credit score went down 100 points for that one frickin' late payment, which was no fault of my own. It was the bank's fault. 100 points for that BS. Luckily, I don't need to apply for credit. I got more than enough to last me a lifetime, but it's just one of those things. I'm very, very meticulous about certain things, and that's one of them is my credit report. I'm very, very careful with that. I'm very careful with other things, let's just say. But okay, I need to get past it. I need to get over it. Just like I need to get over like not buying Apple products. People keep telling me that, but I'm just not doing it. Very particular about that. I was forced to buy it once, and it's paid off for that purpose, but that's it. Yeah, very nice. Someone in our photo club has a Nikon ZF, and it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous camera, but I don't know what it is. Something about it just maybe because I have a DF that I don't see what a ZF would do for me, right? Because if I want to put any of my Nikon glass on it, I'd have to get an adapter. And I'm not a big fan of adapting autofocus lenses. I think that's part of it. And then the Z7 Mark II would be cool for portraits, maybe some wildlife. Yep. Yeah, Nikon is certainly doing a great job with their cameras. They always have. They've always done great job with their cameras. Uh, and the only reason I switched to Micro Four Thirds back in 2015, I think, and made a full switch, I would say 2016. I might be off a year, but anyhow, was how good they were given the size and weight and all of that. And for the purposes and the photography that I do, I had no reason to carry uh, all of that weight and glass that I did. I mean, you would not believe how heavy my bags were when I was shooting Nikon. I mean, back then I used to like to bring everything. So I always had, I bought a 25-liter backpack. I bought like separate bags for the lenses themselves. because you need to protect the lenses, and I bought into the Sigma Art lenses, so I had the 51-4, the 24 to 105 f4, I also had the 18 to 50 for my D7100, and I think I had the 85. I mean, it's like I had all these freaking big, heavy butt, Sigma lenses on top of my vintage 105 2.5, 135 3.5, 50 1.4, all metal, heavy lenses. And I'd bring all this stuff on a photo walk. It was breaking my back. So I went out and I shopped for a small camera, knew nothing about Olympus or Micro Four Thirds. It just was never on my radar. But I was like, let me just get a smaller camera that I can just take on a hike, that I'm not breaking my back, right? To carry something all the time. So I bought the EM10 Mark II with the 14 to 42 easy kit lens and the 40 to 150 f4 to 5.6 R, maybe Mark II, whatever kit lens. And I was just blown away. I was blown away by the quality that I was getting out of this like little budget tiny camera. And I took it out on a photo shoot and I was blown away. I was like, why am I carrying this big heavy D750 and big lenses that I was using for my photo jobs when I can do the same thing in the palm of my hand and deliver the same quality to my clients. So it got to the point where I was never using my D750 and I sold off all my glass. I had some beautiful glass, the autofocus glass anyway. The ones that were the internal motor, not the screw drive. I kept my screw drive ones because of the film cameras I have. But the uh, you know, I had the 21.8, 70 to 200, 150 to 600. I had a bunch of 85 1.8, bunch of glass, and all of the Sigmas, thank God, all of those big heavy lenses. I mean, fantastic image quality out of all of that stuff. But so was my EM10 Mark II with a kit lens. So I was like, I'm done. I'm done with, that. And now I've built everything back up again. Not because I wanted better image quality. It's just every camera has their own gives their own experience to photography. I've just turned into like this uh I've just gotten so into photography. Well, let me rephrase that. I've gotten so much into gear and really love the different experience each piece of gear gives me. And the photography itself, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting to where when I get a chance to go out by myself, uh, I just thoroughly enjoy it. And I know the compositions that I want to get. I'm starting to get a feel for my style and my compositions and the kind of images in terms of exposure that I like and thoroughly enjoy it. And now every camera gives me that little bit extra, right? Or difference. So, when you get into things, you can justify any purchase, right? But like this monochrome. So let me get into the monochrome, and I'll get back to the chat. Okay, so it's a DSLR mirror camera, right? Ergonomics are about what you'd expect for a camera like this. I have no complaints there. It's pretty comfortable in the hands, and uh, I love the top plate LCD. I'm just nostalgic for that. I don't actually. I found that even on my Fuji XH2 and this camera, I found that I'm more nostalgic for this than I'm actually using it. I usually just look at the back of the screen now. The only thing the Fuji does that this doesn't, well, this might. I haven't looked at it that closely. It's so tiny I can't see it. I can just barely read it. This does too. It tells me battery life, if I got the memory card in. I don't think it shows me if I got two in. I'd have to put two cards in. you know, and all the other, but the lettering and everything is so tiny that in practice, I can't really use it. I guess it'd be useful for, because this doesn't have a tilt screen. This is a big complaint a lot of people have. It doesn't bother me that much. It'd be nice to have, but it's not a deal breaker for me, right? Uh, People are complaining about not having a tilt screen, but if I'm shooting low, I can look at the display and see the settings, assuming it's far enough away or I got my glasses on. So the mode dial is crazy on this thing. Look at the mode dial on there. How many things are on that mode dial? We got 5 user settings, bulb setting. What's that X? I assume that's some kind of flash sync setting. Manual TAV, AV, TV, SV. So what is SV? I got to look that up. AV I know, aperture priority, shutter priority for the TV. TAV is kind of like manual mode with auto ISO. That's all that is. And then we have program mode and auto mode. But yeah, that's crazy. Now I like that there's a switch here to lock the mode dial if you want. Nice little touches. That's a nice little touch. I think that's definitely, all I can say is they put a lot of thought into this camera. There's a couple of misses for me, you know, like the exposure compensation should be a number. I'm used to looking at a number rather than a graph. I mean, I just need to adjust my brain when I use this camera, so I'm looking at the graph and not looking for a number. Because a number just stood out to me. I would see a minus 1.7, that would stand out to me. But when I'm looking at a bar graph that is blurry to my eyes, you know, it's not as obvious, right? So I need to adjust my brain a little bit to get used to looking at that. But this really has a lot of thought put into it for photographers, and I really appreciate that. Everything I've done so far, like a separate video dial up here, so I can do photos, videos, live view. I like that it's separate and it's up here and out of the way. Um, you know, I love the front and rear dial, and I love this third dial up here. Much, much better than saying, where's my Sony? Where's that piece of crap? I don't even, oh, it's out there. If you look at the Sony layout, it's doesn't have anywhere near as many buttons on it. And they crammed all 3 mode dials up on top of the camera. Ergonomically, the Sony is just not working for me. So I only take that camera out when I got to do reviews and stuff for lenses. Uh, Even the 60 megapixel sensor that's in it doesn't appeal to me anymore after shooting with it for a while. The trade-off in the ergonomics and the sensor, the resolution is just not quite worth it. Um, that said, I need to take it out more and do some hardcore landscapes with it. But it, you know, when I'm trying to process 60 megapixel images on my computer, because I like to do panos and stuff. Well, anyway, let me get back to this camera. Uh, yeah, tons of buttons and dials. A little more time in the field with this, and I'll be like a surgeon, right? I'll be able to navigate and manipulate and control this camera very quickly and easily, subconsciously, right? And because it has so many things on it that just make it easy to use. Or let me rephrase it, a joy to use. It really is a joy to use this camera, just like with my Olympus cameras. I really, really love everything they did for this. The menu system is very straightforward. It's not overly complicated, even though it has a lot of features to it. The live view display, other than the EVF, or I'm sorry, the exposure compensation graph, is perfectly laid out for me. And it's touch screen and all of that. And then it has, you know, a couple of video things, right? Mic and headphone jack, USB-C, micro HDMI port. You know, just the little things. Those don't matter to me. So, and the shutter sound is really nice. It does sound good. when you push the shutter button on it. This lens is really noisy, you know, but the shutter, see if you can hear it. I don't know if the noise reduction is going to kill it. Yeah. I don't feel any vibration at all when the shutter clicks. In a lot of my cameras, including Olympus, I can feel the shutter, like in my EM5 Mark II. I can feel the shutter vibration throughout the camera. This one, I feel nothing. Nothing. It just makes the sound, but it's rock solid. This camera feels really well made. So, yeah, as far as cameras go and build quality, ergonomics, features, menu system, I'll give this a 10 out of 10. No problem. I mean, it's just as good as you can make a DSLR. I think they've done it. Uh, so and then it has the Wi-Fi thing. Like I said, I think is a workflow issue. I'm having a little trouble with the app connecting sometimes. That I assume that's temporary because I don't have the workflow for that quite down yet. Dual card slots. It's a nice touch. The first one is UHS-2 compatible. Not important to me because I'm not doing wildlife with this and sports and bursting. I don't think people buying a monochrome camera are really probably going to be doing that, but maybe. So yeah, I love everything about it. The only complaint I have about this camera is the mode dial just has too much stuff on it, right? Uh, just too much stuff. Like just have maybe 3 user settings on here and take off this X thing and bulb. Uh, because if you put the camera in manual mode, you can just slide the thing down. I don't know. I guess bulb mode is useful. TAV, they need to get rid of that. I mean, just have manual with auto ISO. Why do you gotta have it on the mode dial, right? Maybe I'm missing something. I need to research more what TAV is exactly, but as far as I can tell, it's just auto ISO with manual. Because you're controlling shutter speed and aperture, and then the camera's doing the ISO for you. So how is that different than manual with auto ISO? I'm not exactly sure yet. This is the only area that I think they kind of got a little carried away is that. Um, and it doesn't feel as heavy as it is. I think it's 800 and some grams because it is very ergonomic and very solid. So I'm extremely happy with the purchase, especially for the price that I got it for, uh, as a camera. Now, the fact that it's also a monochrome on top of that really makes this camera very, very special in my opinion. Because what do they have? That you have Pentax and you have Leica. Where else can you get an all monochrome camera? And converting a camera to monochrome costs almost as much as what I paid for this, right? So I think this is definitely a camera that's going to get a lot of use, unlike the Sony and Fuji that I bought. Those things hardly leave the house. But this is definitely going to go out more than more than any other brand I have other than my Olympus. My Olympus always goes out first. Uh, so yeah, this has something that uh, one thing I noticed in the workflow, and we'll get to some images here. Let me just make one more statement here about the workflow with a DSLR. Oh, I already talked about it. The using the EVF, or not, I'm sorry, using the optical viewfinder. So, you're just looking through the lens. I'm not used to chimping, right? I take the picture because I see it in my Olympus cameras, I see it before I take it. So I know I got the exposure I want, generally speaking. If it's off a little, I can fix it, right? But with this one, like I said, I was shooting at negative 1.7 EV for like 30 minutes or so for a while before I realized the images were too dark. So I just, again, that's a me problem. I have to kind of get used to that. All right, let's get to the images. Let me see if I can share. Not, and I'm going to type in here because if you can open up a new tab on your browser, what is it? You can just look at the same images I'm looking at on your own screen, because looking at the images on the live stream, they're going to be crap. You're not going to be able to see any difference. But I posted the images in full resolution on my Flickr page. So for those of you that don't know it already. Oh, Osman, awesome. Great to have you as a member. Like I said, I'm going to start doing some more member-only type stuff. Uh, I want to do a members-only live stream here pretty quick. Maybe even today. I don't know. I gotta figure out how to announce that and coordinate. I need to get used to having a membership, but thank you so much for your support. Either way, it's great to have you here. So there's my Flickr page, and let me pull it up on my screen. Oh, why is my loop deck? Hold on. I'm having an issue here. Nope, that's Adobe. Oh, heck. Let me just unplug it and plug it back in. While that's booting, I'm going to just check the chat again real quick. I left off somewhere around 10 a.m., so I'm like 38 minutes behind. So how well do Penta and Leica primes work on Ollie? Great. So I have the 21.4, the 45.18, and I'm looking for another small prime, Penta Leica 15.1.7 or 17.1.8. I would go with the 15.1.7 if that's the choice. The 17 is great, but it's a little soft wide open consistently with every review I've seen, including my lens. It's not a deal breaker. It's perfectly fine at wide open at 1.8. But the Leica 15.1.7, every review and everyone that's ever talked about that lens says it's sharp, wide open, and the contrast is better. It's fabulous lens. The aperture ring is not going to work on your Olympus camera, though. It has an aperture ring on it. It's going to be disabled. But other than that, I think the 15 millimeter Leica is supposed to be better in every way, and it's on my short list of lenses to get uh, after I get a few more Pentax lenses. But they work fine. You lose image synchronization, so if you buy a Leica lens or if you buy a Panasonic lens with image stabilization, it's not going to work with the Olympus cameras. Some other features like in-camera focus stacking is going to be disabled. But it is for a lot of Olympus lenses too, if we want to be fair. So yeah, there's some minor differences here and there, but for the most part, I wouldn't worry about it. If Panasonic makes the lens that you want in the focal length and aperture that you need, I wouldn't hesitate recommending buying one outside of the super telephoto zooms that have image stabilization. So I have basically three Panasonic lenses. I have the 25 1.7, the 35 to 100 f2.8, and I have the 25 1.4. All of them are fabulous. Even the 25 1.7, which gets a lot of complaints about back focusing or something. I've not experienced that myself. And I use that lens on my EM5 Mark II all the time and no issues at all. But now that I got the 25 1.4, the 25 1.7's just kind of been in the shelf in the cabinet now. I should probably just sell it or give it away or something, but okay, so I'm going to leave off here with Semjohn's chat. Let's look at some images before. All right, Hold on. Turning it off and on again didn't work. I can't do this without my little loop deck, man. See, I got a loop deck right here. How do you like my B cam? I'm using this is actually like a 4 Panasonic lenses. I also have the 7 to 14 f4. I'm using that today because I couldn't find a kit lens for my B cam here. And I have it right now at like I think 10 or 11 millimeters. Terrific lens. I use it all the time. Man, it makes me look fat. Wide angle distortion. I'm not fat. That's wide angle distortion. No, I am a little bit chubby here. Okay. All right. My loop deck is working. Let's see. Yes. All right. Now we're in business. So let me switch over to this. Switch over to this. Okay. So let's start back over here where and I labeled these things. This is and all the exit data is here, okay? So this is the first night that I got the Pentax, and I was comparing the Pen F monochrome, like just a regular monochrome. It's the monochrome profile number 1 on the Pen F. Oops, is basically monochrome profile in any Olympus camera. So I was comparing that against the Pentax, and like I said, all I have is the 18 to 55 kit lens. So the first shot here is with the Pen F. And if we go over to the next shot here, let's see, what is this? Oh, this is, okay, so I was also comparing with the Nikon DF. So this is the Nikon DF. So here's the Pen F, the DF, and I did a little bit of editing here in Photolab. Basically, all I did was bring up her eyes because they were a little bit dark. And that's what I do in all my editing. But we're going to get to some straight out of camera photos here soon. And this is what? This is a little pocket. This is a pocket Nikon compact camera. This is a CCD sensor from 2011 or 2012. All right, so I was doing a lot of comparisons here. What is this? This is the LX100. Okay. Again, very minimal editing. I just did a little bit to the eyes here, and that's about it. Okay, here's a comparison, and this is full resolution, so you can zoom in on this and really compare fine details. Now, I wouldn't put too much weight on resolution here because, again, I'm using this ridiculously soft kit lens. But it looks good here, right? But what I want to focus on with the monochrome camera are basically the tones. And there's a very, very subtle difference here. And some of you may see it already, but it's in the grass here, which is mostly yellows, right? And a little bit of green. It's brighter. And the exposure, I think, is identical here in this case, right? The Pen F is a little bit faster. But yeah, overall, I'm sorry, the Pen F, yeah, the shutter speed is like a, I don't know, 10% stop, 10% of a stop difference here, or 20%. But overall, it's brighter. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is darker because I use the faster shutter speed. However, when you look at her chest right here, okay, and then look at her chest down here, it's slightly overexposed, even though I use the faster shutter speed by 50th of a second, which translates to a quarter stop, now that I think about it. So definitely the monochrome sensor retained the highlight tones here actually a little better, which is contrary to what a lot of people are reviewing online. Okay, so this is only one picture, right? But feel free to inspect this one to your heart's content. You can even download it if you want. Any of my images that I put online here are downloadable, for personal use. Don't publish them and all of that, right? The normal caveats when you download somebody else's photo. It's not your photo, but you're welcome to download it and then inspect it for your own personal use. All right. Here's the first true image straight out of camera from the Pentax Monochrome. And right away, you can see very, very subtle differences in the tonality on this image. There's just, this one I got exposed actually correctly somehow. And I wasn't using flash, so that's why the settings, I should add that I was using flash in all the shots that you saw just now. I shot at f8 because, like I said, this lens is pretty soft if I shoot it wide open. But I was able to maintain my shutter speed because I bumped the ISO to 800. But there is no noise or grain in this image. I mean, the tiny, tiniest bit, when you pixel peep, you can see a little tiny bit of grain in the background here. But this image is hyper clean, hyper sharp, amazing tonality all along her white fur. She's a black and white dog, by the way. Not the best subject to test a black and white camera, right? Really, you should test with a lot of colors, but the grass, the tonality between the fence line and the grass, it's really amazing. What a what a really good job this did. Now, in a blind test, if somebody told me I didn't know what camera this was, I wouldn't be able to tell. Okay, my eye is not quite trained yet for this kind of sensor. But I guarantee over time of using this camera and looking at the files and editing, I'm gonna be able to tell right away, monochrome sensor or Bayer sensor, whatever, X-trans sensor. I'm gonna be able to tell. Uh, because when you do things for a while, you start to get an eye for it. And I can see where I'm definitely gonna get a good eye for the monochrome sensor and really appreciate what the monochrome sensor is doing for you by not having that color filter array on top of it. All right, let me put the chat window up just so I can see. All right, and this one here is okay. This one I used flash, but it's still a straight out of camera picture. So if you toggle back and forth with flash, without flash. So what did I do? I probably used a faster shutter, lower ISO. Well, same shutter speed with lower ISO, but wider aperture. Anyway, the settings are down there for you to kind of extrapolate the differences in the exposure. But again, really amazing job here on the tonality. All of the fur is still nothing clipped here, nothing clipped in here. Her eyes are sort of a dark brown. Did a really good job of separating, because this is one of the biggest problems I have when I do black and white conversions on a color camera without editing. Just a straight color conversion. Her eyes are very, very dark. But in this image, really good separation of tones here between her dark brown eyes and her black fur. And in this case, sort of black and white fur. This is something that I really haven't seen as much in my color cameras that are converted to black and white. I have to manipulate the color channels to bring her eyes out. But with this monochrome camera, this is one of the first things I noticed as well, is the tonality separation here. Uh, and then again, overall, everything else going on here. Okay. What is this? This is the Olympus Pen F. So look at her eyes. Now you might argue, yeah, the tonality is here too, right? And I do see some separation here, but it's a very subtle difference between this one and this one. This is the monochrome camera. This is the Pen F. You can see when you go online and look at it directly, you'll see that these are a little bit darker. Also, look at the fur. It's clipping or near clipping. Nowhere near as much tonality in the white fur. Now, the kit lens on is just crazy sharp on this. I was using the 14 to 42 kit lens. It's crazy sharp on this thing. But this is a real good example of two side-by-side images. All right, this is a panel shot. I took 4 images and stitched them together using the Pentax monochrome camera, but this is heavily edited on top of that, right? So don't look at this image for straight out of camera. This is not a straight out of camera image. This has been heavily edited. So more specifically, I darkened the tones in the sky. I added a little brightness to the yellow trees because I also have a color version of this image. So I did a little brightening and a little bit of highlight recovery and a little bit of clarity and other things down here in the water. So this is heavily edited, but editing the monochrome image, uh, I didn't have any issues. It was very manageable, right? And I'm at base ISO 200 f8. So I did everything I can to get this image as sharp and as clean as possible given the lens that I was using. All right, the next image here is the Pen F monochrome. Pen F monochrome, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Pen F, I just labeled it here. But like I said, the exit data is here. Uh, this is probably not straight out of camera. Let me see. This one is straight out of camera. So this is a straight out of camera monochrome, and I have all the settings to default. Zero sharpness, zero contrast. And zero means actually they're applying a little bit to the image in the JPEG. But for consistency's sake, I set everything to zero default settings. I did the same thing on the Pentax monochrome. I set everything to default for the JPEGs. Let's see. This is the Pentax monochrome, and this was one of those shots where I was underexposing everything by 1.7 stops, so I had to add it back in post-processing. But aside from that, um, this is a very good example of the tonality that you get, or the differences in tonality that you get from the monochrome sensor. So I'm going to point out a couple of things, specifically the trees and the house, right? So look at the tree here, this particular one, and this tree. This tree is bright red. This tree here is yellow. Now, if we go back to the Pen F version, look at the difference here, how much brighter the reds and the yellows are. There's spotches of yellow in here too. And the house is brighter relative to the sky. Now, if we go back to the monochrome, you notice that the house is darker relative to the sky. So there's very, very subtle differences in the tonality in this conversion. I'm sorry, in the Pen F conversion, right? Because clearly this house, to me, looks brighter than the sky. I could measure this in Photoshop. I guess I could, but visually, this looks brighter to me than the sky. Uh, but certainly a stark difference between this and the Pen F monochrome. So what we're seeing here with a color camera is converting from black and white to color in camera, and then converting it back to black and white in camera, right? Because it captures basically a color image and then it has to be converted back to monochrome. So those are 2 very good examples to compare the tonality. Now, like I said, one of the subscribers or someone mentioned, that it's not a fair comparison because of this added 1.7 EV in post, but I don't think that's really makes a difference with the kind of things we're looking at for this image. If we wanna look at resolution and, noise and things like that, then or dynamic range, then yeah, maybe this is a problem, but we're just looking at the tones basically, and there's just like I said, these very there's definitely more differences here that I could go through, but those were the ones that stood out to me right off the bat were the yellows, especially the reds here. The tonality between the red and the green, there's just not much difference at all. The tonality of the home is darker than the sky. And on the Pen-F, you can see definitely the house looks brighter than the sky. The yellows and the reds are standing out more. Okay. And here's a side-by-side that I did with the same settings listed. So we can see it here. And again, this is a full res. Don't look at resolution. Don't compare resolution, dynamic range, not those kinds of things, but just look at the tonality of the different colors uh, between these two. I think there's a color image in here somewhere. Okay, maybe not. All right, so that was yesterday morning, and then last night, last night I did some self-portraits, and this one is the Pentax straight out of camera JPEG sensor spot. Already got dust on the sensor. And someone in the comments mentioned that the kit lens that I'm using constantly put dust on their sensor. And lo and behold, after not even 24 hours of use, I got a spot on my sensor. So, and that lens has not come off that camera because it's the only lens I got. I've never taken it off since I got the camera. And yet there's this freaking sensor spot. Anyhow, you can look at the tonality, you can look at the detail too. This is at f8. So, even at f8, it's not that sharp. I don't know why, because the pictures of Ellie came out crazy sharp, but this self-portrait, it's not that sharp. And yeah, thanks for the grooming tips there, Henry. I'm scared to trim my eyebrows. I might shave them off by accident. That would be hilarious. The nose hairs, I did trim my nose hairs this morning. I did. So hopefully that won't be a problem again. So you guys will see some gross things. Never pixel peep a person's face and expect to have flawless skin and hair, okay? I think we all know that as portrait photographers. Certainly portrait photographers know that. Um, so where's the okay, here's the Pen-F image. And then here is the I'm sorry, Pentax image. And here's a side by side. So let's look at this. I was very careful to with the exposure. I really tried to match these the best I can. And I did that by using the gray backdrop, right? See, if you look at the gray backdrop, they're exposed roughly about the same as I go back and forth. Because setting the cameras to the exact same exposure, I was getting different brightnesses on both. So I use the backdrop as my basis for the exposure, and then the settings are what you see here. So about a third of a stop more light onto the Pen F. I had to be at f7.1 versus f8. So I need to open the lens up a little bit more just to get the exposure virtually identical. And I was doing it by eye. I wasn't using any instruments or measuring things. This was just last night I was watching TV and I said, instead of watching TV, I should do some practice shots. So I wasn't as thorough or as clinical as I am when I'm doing some other type of testing. But again, right away, you can see some differences. There's a lot of yellows and reds in my skin, and they're again here brighter again still, just like it was in the landscape photo or seascape photo. The tonality here is you can see that if I overexpose this by one more stop, I'm definitely going to clip highlights and things. Uh, maybe the T-shirt here, you can see is just right at the point of clipping versus over here, we have really, really nice tones, and we can see the tonality all the way across this shirt versus here, it's practically clipped white. Uh, so yeah, reds reds and yellows are coming through brighter, and that is an Olympus Color Science uh, result, right? Olympus, in their interpolation from color to, or their interpolation of taking a black and white sensor, putting a color filter on top, and then converting it back to black and white, all in camera, this is what you get. Now, other cameras may not do this because this is all color science related, that these are conscious decisions that Olympus made for doing black and white conversions in camera. This may not be the case when I use a different camera, so we'll see. I'm going to test my Nikon DF and my Panasonic LX100 and whatever other cameras I think make sense to compare it against, right? I'm going to do some more comparisons, but this is what I found last night and or yesterday in general, in the morning and in the evening. Reds and yellows are brighter on the Olympus cameras when you convert them. But the totality is really, really nice on the black and white, the monochrome image. So I really like that. Uh, okay, here's the color image. This was shot with the Pen F of the other scene that we were looking at in black and white. So if you want to see what the colors look like, they're in this image, this house, right? And this is heavily edited, by the way. So it's not a straight out of camera. It's heavily edited. A lot of times you can see it says right here, DX08. Sometimes I'll write it in the comments. I didn't write it this time because it just says it right here, DX08. So I was using Photolab 8 to edit this. And this is another image, color image from the Pen F. Again, heavily processed. I kind of over processed it a little bit. But there you have it. So let me get back to, so that's what I found. I'm definitely seeing a difference in tonality. I'm definitely seeing an improvement in tonality, in my opinion. And I'm really enjoying the results that I'm getting so far. And I'm not feeling any regrets. Now, the 3 or 4 days before the camera arrived to my house, I was regretting my decision. I was like, I just dropped like $1,600. I can do black and white on my Pen F. Why did I buy this You know what I mean? But now that I have it and I've shot with it for basically a day and a half, uh, I am not regretting the decision anymore. After handling the camera and using it and then seeing the results that I'm getting, I have no regrets. I have some issues I have to work through with autofocus and the Wi-Fi app. I hate apps in general, so that's one problem. I have trouble with all apps, but I hate this. So I have some workflow issues I have to get through, right? I have to get a feel for how the camera autofocuses so that I can nail focus or be sure that I nailed focus, and then I can blame the camera, right? If I said, I know I got focus right, why is this, like this kit lens, I know it's a little bit soft. But uh, so if you've been thinking about the Pentax monochrome, and really you have to be hardcore enthusiasts in black and white photography, okay? Uh, to buy this. It cannot be your only camera. This has got to be like your second, third, fourth, fifth camera. In my case, probably 20th camera. This has got to be like way down the line of list, way down your list in terms of cameras to get. But ultimately, when you get there, when you come to the decision that you want to do monochrome, get a monochrome camera, I don't think you'll be disappointed with it. I I'm thrilled with the monochrome images that I'm getting from it so far. Like I said, I've had it a day and a half. Okay. But the images that we just looked at, the very subtle differences, make me happy with my decision and not regret my decision to buy this camera. Because God knows I have gas and I have purchases like my Sony a7R5. Definitely a gas purchase. Definitely. Well, that was more than gas. That was FOMO, fear of missing out, right? High resolution. That was a FOMO purchase. I wouldn't even call that a gas purchase. That was a FOMO purchase. But and there's I've been regretting it since I got it. I mean, it's a fabulous camera. Don't get me wrong. I got no complaints about the camera. It's just the most wrong camera for me ever. It just was not the right camera for me. I would sell it were it not for the fact that I don't know, I still might sell it. I might get rid of it. I got such a good deal on it, so it was partially gas. I got it for less than 3,000, brand new last year. So, and that's a smoking deal, right? No matter what, with warranty, okay? With USA warranty, factory warranty. Let me be even more specific. But uh, so it was partially gas, mostly FOMO, right? Because I got a little bit spoiled by the Panasonic S1R when I had it. That's a camera I regret selling. I regret selling that one. Of everything I've sold a handful of things. That is the one. It's not a major regret, but it's definitely pretty strong regret selling that one. Okay. But I should qualify all of these regrets and non-regrets, like happy I bought, against the Olympus OM system cameras, which go beyond being happy. I am ecstatic with all of my OM system purchases and Olympus. I've definitely no regrets, beyond happy, but just ecstatic and enthusiastic about all of the purchases I've made with my OM system cameras. So to me, OM systems set the bar pretty high, in my opinion, right? Because and again, a camera that's perfect for me. It may not be perfect for everyone, obviously it's not. Otherwise, they'd have a bigger market share. But I am glad that they exist, that they make the cameras that they do, the way that they make them, the things that they put into them, the features, the ergonomics, everything about the camera system has been just bliss for me. Um, this Pentax monochrome is pretty close right now. I'm still riding kind of the honeymoon high here because I've only had it a couple of days. We'll see how I feel like a year from now. But right now I'm really pretty high on this camera. I was not high on my Sony camera. I was really not that high on the Fuji camera. That was kind of a FOMO purchase too, but I don't have any regrets buying that camera. I'm very happy with the XH2. I'm very happy with every Olympus. The Nikon DF I love. Um, but bar none, this is still number one. My little Pen F. I got this as a birthday gift to myself when I turned 50. So I've had this camera 8 years now. Still going strong. I've had to replace the 14 to 42 easy lens. The old one, it has that zooming lens defect or lens error problem. Yeah, it happened to me too. So but this one's been going strong for a few years now. I haven't had any issues. My other one, it died like after about less than 2 years, and then I replaced it with this, and it's been fine for the last 4 or 5 years, I guess. Uh, yeah, bar none. Nothing comes close to this. The closest camera that comes to this for now, in terms of joy, is probably the DF, Nikon DF. But this is quickly becoming number 3. Certainly, there's cameras that can do more than any of these, right? That I've just mentioned. My OM1 just blows all of these cameras out of the water in terms of features, capability, image quality, autofocus. Just destroys these cameras. Not even close. But that is a workhorse camera for me. It's not a camera I take out to enjoy, right? When I want to go birding, I enjoy birding. I enjoy wildlife, nature, going out, getting out, shutter therapy. And the camera allows me to do that and capture images and really enjoy the nature, right? And birding and capture and enjoy the images that I capture. And using the camera, of course, is a joy. It's a joy. So, well, joy is not the right word, but it's very easy to use, very capable. But it's not a Pen F. Pen F is right here in my heart, right? Pen F, DF, and I'm telling you, I'm thinking this is going to be really, really close. This is going to be very close. Third. It's really like 3 number ones, right? The Pen F number 1, DF number 1. This could be a number 1 also, like a 3-way tie. I don't know. So, all right. Anyway, that's enough about me and my experience. Let me know what you think if you have the monochrome camera or whatever you think of your camera, whatever camera you have. If you really like it, let me know what it is, and I can. I'd love to share in your joy, so to speak. um, okay, so let me get to the chat. I'm gonna try and catch up here. Oh, Leica and a GFX kind of like on my list too. Might have to be next year though. I'm really really out of money. Bone dry. It's gonna be lean, lean, lean this year for gifts and things to family and friends. 'Cause I selfishly bought all these things for myself. Unless I sell that Sony, then I'll be back in business, right? But Leica and Panasonic come out of the same factory, yes. But they're different lenses, right? I mean, there's not like a Panasonic version of the 25 1.4 and a Leica version separate. They're different, just like the Panasonic SL2, I'm sorry, the Leica SL2 and the Panasonic S1R. I don't know if they come from the same factory or not, probably not, but they're different cameras, even though they share a lot of the same components. Um, but it is a very important point that the Leica branded lenses are not truly Leica, right? They're just branded Leica. I think the difference is that Panasonic doesn't necessarily call their lenses pro, right? Like Olympus does and OM Systems. They have pro lenses. I think for Panasonic, if it has that Leica brand on it, it's their pro lens, right? It's the professional version. So it's gonna have a higher standard in terms of uh, design, design and quality, and maybe manufacturing, but certainly in design of the lens, it's going to be more premium. Use more premium components, materials, and design. It's going to be superior, right? So more R&D went into designing that lens. But yeah, Paul makes an important point that they're coming out of the same factory, but if it has a Leica brand on it, definitely more went into that lens with respect to design and materials. G9 GX9 Mark II AF, is it good for BIF? Uh, Well, Emily from Micro Four Nerds did a direct comparison with the OM1 Mark One, and then she followed up with an OM1 Mark Two, and she found the OM system camera better for birding. But that said, I think she also said that they both give you great results. So the short answer to your question is yes, the GX9 Mark II is good for BIF, no question. I think the differences are in how the workflow in buffering, right? The Panasonic has to clear the buffer before it starts taking pictures again. The OM Systems does not. As the buffer clears, you can continue taking pictures even though the buffer is not completely flushed back to zero. You can continue taking pictures. Whereas with the Panasonic, I believe that's the key difference is you have to wait for the buffer to go back to zero, like fully flush before you can start taking pictures again. So don't quote me on that, but I believe that was the key difference between the two cameras. The autofocus and everything, I think both are fine. I think the OM1 Mark II is probably better than the GX9 Mark II based on what I watched with Emily from Micro Four Nerds. So I'll have to refer you to those videos first to start doing your due diligence if you're considering the GX9 Mark II. For the difference in price, I don't know. That's another thing you have to think about, right? Is it worth, because the GX9 Mark II, especially when on sale, is substantially less expensive than OM1 Mark II. So to get 2 or 3% more pictures in focus with an OM1, is it worth the 20, 30% more you're going to pay? That's the decision you have to make. But the short answer is yes, it's great. I would say not just good, but it's great for BIF. And Paul says images, firmware, and master, not me, can get them the same in software. Yes. Again, I agree that with any single image from just about any camera, assuming resolution aside, different cameras have different resolutions. But if you have good glass, good exposure, and a good raw file, 12-bit, 14-bit, doesn't matter. But losslessly compressed or uncompressed raw image, you can manipulate it in software and get anything you want out of that image to get it equal to any other camera in terms of color science, resolution. Well, like I said, not resolution so much, but uh, dynamic range, tonality, all of that you can pretty much do in software. If you want to equalize ISO performance, you can do that to some degree. I mean, ultimately, you always lose a little bit of detail the higher you go up in ISO. But in practical terms, software and AI can pretty much uh, basically level a playing field. And you know, there's so much going on the software side now that that is basically the great equalizer of all cameras, given the same sensor tech and all of that. But the monochrome camera is different. I could certainly work with a single image from any camera and get it to look exactly like the image output from a monochrome. Maybe not me personally, but theoretically it's possible, right? You can go in pixel by pixel, make adjustments, right? In any photo editing software and get the exact same image, tonality, everything from any camera to match the monochrome. Uh, but where I was going with this is over time, okay? Thousands of images, tens of thousands of images. You will always get better results when you have the right camera, right? So, yeah, the monochrome camera, I feel like if I had tens of thousands of images in my, portfolio from this camera and I compare them to tens of thousands of images, over time, I'll never be able to get these two cameras to match exactly. I'm always going to get better results with black and white images with a monochrome camera than I ever will with any color camera over tens of thousands of images. It's just, life is too short, number one, to edit every single image to that extent, right? Doesn't matter, no. But if this is your hobby, like for me it is a hobby and a business, uh you just you really appreciate the differences, and you're going to get the right tool for the right job. So if I want to do black and white photography, and I love black and white photography, and I've been very happy with the results I've gotten from the Pen F and any camera really. But having this monochrome camera, like over the next 10,000 images that I take, that I want to do in monochrome, I'm going to get better results consistently with that camera, and better tonality, dynamic range, noise, all the things that they talk about how great this is. I think it's all true. It's sharper, better dynamic range, uh, better tonality, yada, 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 you know? So I don't disagree with you in any way, Paul. What you're saying here is that basically software is the great equalizer, and it is on any single image or series of images. But I think over time, over tens of thousands of images, you're going to, at least I will, appreciate the monochrome sensor for my black and white images over my color cameras. I hope I was able to articulate that, at least how I'm feeling. And Paul says, I would spend $300 on travels. I think that's in reference to the price difference between when I was talking about the S1R and the uh, SL2. And Marco's here. Hey, Marco. For plus or minus a couple $100, I'd get one that would bring me the most enjoyment. Yeah, I agree. And I think about that all the time, right? We're not we're not going to be on this planet very long, right? It's inevitable. Why not grab as much enjoyment that you can, and know what's going to give you joy, right? Don't just spend money, right? Money doesn't buy happiness, but since I enjoy photography and this is my hobby, I I know that it's not just for the sake of spending money. It's because I am going to use it and enjoy it. Even if I only use it a little bit, right? Just a little bit of joy. It's okay. It's okay. It's only money. You can't take it with you, right? And Anthony's here. Hey, Anthony says, I wish OM System would bring out a monochrome. Yeah, me too. Me too. Probably never happen. I mean, think about it. Leica's been making monochrome cameras, I don't know how long. Maybe a decade, maybe longer. I don't follow Leica that closely, but no one else has done it until Pentax, right? So it's ironic though. You would think maybe Pentax, why would they do it? But they did it. I mean, they've always come out with quirky cameras, so it's kind of in their blood to come out with some kind of weird camera. Uh, Whereas Home Systems, Olympus, they're striving for excellence, I think. And monochrome camera, just like the Pen F, would be a very special project for them. They would probably do an amazing job if they made a monochrome camera. Pentax, basically all they did, and I'm sure there's some tweaking in the firmware and stuff. Like this is missing the high-res shot mode that the regular color K33 has. That's the one thing missing that I found so far. But I guarantee OM System would do an amazing job. They would go, because all Pentax did was drop a monochrome sensor in here. And if they come out with the GR3 monochrome, that's all they're going to do is drop a monochrome sensor in. And the few engineering tweaks that would be needed to do that. But I guarantee at least in the past, you know, they would do a ground up design of a monochrome camera if they ever decide to come out with one and make it really special, just like they did with the Pen F. This, even though it reuses some of the components, this was basically from the ground up design, right? Yeah, we have the EVF from the, EM10 Mark II. We got the sensor from, well, then sensors was new at the time. It was, I think this was the first 20 megapixel micro four thirds sensor. But you get what I'm saying. This was a ground up design, right? And I think if they did a monochrome camera, they would put the same, at least Olympus would have. OM system remained to be seen. But Olympus would have done it from the ground up, and they would have done an amazing job. Or they will do, hopefully, in the future. And Thomas is here. Hey, Rob, Truck and fellow truckers. Late to the shore from Atlanta. It's 17 degrees Celsius. You know what that is? That sounds, that is 62 degrees. Oh, that's warm compared to where I am. It's barely 62 degrees in my room here. Hence the heavy coat, the sweater, the Under Armour, all that stuff. Sim John said, I would buy monochrome Pen F immediately. Yeah, a lot of people would. Oh my God, so many people would. I mean, if they just dropped a monochrome sensor in here, I would be content with that because it's still basically a ground up design. Be very, very unique. But I think they would do more. I think they would do more than just drop a monochrome sensor in a Pen F. If they drop a monochrome sensor in an OM5, I would be a little bit disappointed. I'd be like, all you did was drop a monochrome sensor in an existing body. I mean, that's just lazy by Olympus standards. So if OM system does that, they're just being lazy. To me, this camera, a lot of the positive things I talked about are all about the Pentax K33, not necessarily because this is monochrome, right? When I was talking about the features, ergonomics, all that, that's Pentax. But the sensor itself, all I did was drop a monochrome sensor in here, like I said, and a few engineering tweaks to make that happen. So ultimately, this is a very, very lazy design for a monochrome camera, right? They didn't do really anything extra special to make this. They just took a business gamble, right? It's just basically a marketing business gamble to drop a monochrome sensor in here. And if it does well, they might be like, let's put one in a GR3. We'll see, right? But this is a very lazy design in my opinion. They didn't really do anything special to make this extra special, right? Granted, I love I'm very happy with it and all that, but I'm just giving my opinion about cameras, right? Just my opinion. And the Pen F, just dropping a monochrome sensor in this would be awesome. I would buy one, but I hope they do more. I hope they don't just get lazy and just drop a monochrome sensor in an existing body, whether it's this or an OM5 or OM1. To me, that would be just such a lazy way to get into monochrome, and I don't think many people will buy it. A lot of us would buy it, but the market in general would probably have a hard time. And I'm curious to know how this is doing in the market. I have no idea how this is doing in the market. Maybe it's doing great, maybe not, but uh this, I guess the big thing about this is that because it's like seven or $8,000 less than a Leica monochrome, and people that want a monochrome camera will buy this because they can't afford the Leica, right? But yeah, I would like to see them put some effort into a monochrome camera, make it a really special project, just like they did the Pen F. And I'm sorry, Semjon, you have more here, or just a new Pen F in general? Yes. Any new Pen F, I would buy one in a heartbeat. I toyed around with the monochrome and grainy film 1 mode on OM5, and the JPEGs are nice, especially grainy film 1. I like number 2. It's a little less contrasty, but yeah. It it really the art filters, when they're available, grainy film as an art filter is great. I love them. I don't use them quite as much as I used to, but like on a fall, like right now it's fall, pop art number 2 is awesome for fall colors. It'll really bring them out and make them pop without making the image look too uh, processed, so to speak. I think it's yeah. So if you have an Olympus camera with art filters and you want to do fall colors, pop art number 2. Amazing, amazing the images you'll get. John Allen says, wondering about video editing using an Android tablet, e.g. a Samsung S9. I don't think it'll be very good. Photo editing will be okay, but depends, right? If you're just using something like GIMP or some if we're not talking about any AI features, you'll be fine. And even editing video is not bad on a tablet if they're just your standard 1080p video. But if you start getting into 4K video and applying LUTs or doing any kind of grading, or if you start getting more advanced and then using AI in your photo editing to reduce noise or to uh, uh, fix things, right? The eraser, remove subjects and objects. That's when a tablet is going to start to struggle. And I guarantee. And the other problem is a lot of software. Well, not a lot. I know DxO Photolab you can't use it on an Android tablet, so it wouldn't even be an option. But Lightroom, I think, does. There's some other apps that will work on a tablet, but I don't know how well they're going to work with if they have any AI features. I don't think the tablet world is quite there yet. Um, Hi, Ken. Good to see you. Hello. Um, Paul loves the 100 to 400. I didn't know it was Leica branded though. Oh, no, they do have a Leica branded. Sorry, I was thinking of the Olympus one. Yeah, nice lens. Someone in our club uses hers with her OM1, and the images she captures are amazing. And Marsh is here. Good to see you. Oh, you gotta go. You're going to Pirate Fest. That's awesome. And Thomas says, I often shoot monochrome set on the OMD M10 Mark II to see better shapes and contrast and usually process the raw in color. Yes. Black and white photography definitely focuses your attention to light, right? And shapes and shadows and all of that. It really makes you think, especially when you have to look through an optical viewfinder, you really think about the colors, the composition, the lighting. How is this going to look? Like I showed you, the reds and greens to a monochrome sensor look pretty much the same shade of gray. It's hard to distinguish the two. Paul says, my old Nikon film camera, but I don't have any of them or the lenses. Okay. Well, do you still shoot film at all? That's the way. If you don't, then it doesn't matter, right? Credit score. We are being screwed by the wealthy. Oh, let's not bring up this subject anymore because I was so irate. You guys, and it's hard to get mad at the people that answer the phone at the banks and things because they're just like 1 in 1,000 people that work there and have never looked at your account ever before, right? They have no idea who you are. I'm mad at the system because if it was just a couple of people, 2 human beings dealing with this issue that I have, it'd be resolved. like in 5 minutes. But we have to go through this entire process because of this infrastructure that's been built up over the decades, you know. All right, let's not anyway, I was nice to the person that I talked to on the phone, but I made it clear I was very unhappy. Um, the NX Studio Nikon software really works well for the NAF files. Yes, I've heard that. What's his name? One of the wildlife photographers that shoots Nikon on YouTube uses the NX Studio software a lot of times first before doing or only, right? When I used to watch him, it's been a long time though. Also regarding weight, I managed 200 to 500 lens with peak design clip on my camera mini backpack I use on my walks for birding. Yep. Yeah, there's lots of innovations in bags and, you know, um, straps and all that stuff that, excuse me, uh, just makes things a little easier, right? Makes things a little easier to carry and walk around with. And Paul says, I believe NX Studio is an early version of DX. Really? I have to boot up my NX Studio and see. I got a copy of it somewhere because my old Nikon in my box, and when you used to get a CD with your cameras. I don't know if you still do or not. And Eric says the reason I'm going the GR3 is pocketable, and I work on the road all day fixing Maryland. Ah, right. A lot of those are sketchy and hauling my own morning gear. Yeah, yeah. It makes perfect sense. You want to capture some snaps when you can while you're out in the field with your day job, right? If you're lucky enough to be outside and unlucky enough to be outside at the same time, but I totally get that, the GR3. That makes a lot of sense. The only thing I've heard about is though is people have problems with dust on their sensor. I don't think it's a deal breaker. Maybe it's not an issue at all. Maybe I'm just remembering wrong. So if you're putting your so my point is you're putting in your pocket a lot. Make sure your pockets are clean. And yes, I think I addressed this, but thank you, Osmond. Great to have you as a member here. And there should be a join link, I think, down on the videos now. If you want to become a member and support the work that I do here, because a lot of things I do, seriously, I probably answer hundreds, maybe 1,000 questions every month. Uh, Either here in the streams time to time, but a lot in the comments sections, right? On older videos that you probably haven't watched in years, right? But there's a lot of new people watching these videos and they have a question, and I do my best to answer them in the comment section. So there's that. So when you get a membership it's 99 cents, right? I just picked the lowest one. I'm not putting any caps on what I'm going to offer. Like I said, I can do live streams. I might release some videos, member only, things like that. It's brand new for me. I don't think I've even done it for 30 days yet. But, uh, it supports a lot of the work that I do to help the photography community. So when I put that tagline on the membership, I mean it. I really do work hard, not only here online on YouTube with the comment sections and emails. I get emails all the time. There's one I need to get back to. Can't remember who it was. But uh, I probably get a maybe a 6 or 7, like half a dozen emails a week with questions and opinions. And I go through those and respond to all of those best I can. And also in the field, out with the photo club. Some of you are local to me and have found the photo club either because I was a member there. It's not mine specifically. I help organize it, but really it's David Crook's photo club. But I spend literally at least half of my time in the field with people, helping them with their camera gear, with their photography, whatever. It's so ironic sometimes. Uh, I was trying to help somebody with something, and then I got a criticism on one of my videos, and they were right. The criticism was accurate, right? I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And I was like, "It's so ironic." It was about composition, I think. I think it was about composition. I just was helping somebody with the composition in their photography, and then in one of the comments on my video somewhere, or maybe on a post, I got criticized for my composition on something else, right? And I got called out basically online, which is fine. I don't mind, right? But it's just ironic because just the day before I was teaching somebody else the same thing that I was getting criticized for. Oh gosh, anyway, let me try to get caught up. With the large size with regards to street use for the monochrome will stand out more. Yep. Yeah, but cameras in general are pretty ubiquitous. Is that the right word? Meaning, if you're holding any camera, even a cell phone, if you're pointing it at anybody, they're going to notice, you know? Ubiquitous is, cell phones are more ubiquitous. I use the word in the opposite manner. But yeah, any camera, whether it's a GR3, TG5, if you're holding up a camera and pointing it anywhere, people are going to notice. So, I felt a little nervous when I took my DF out one time and it felt like a bazooka. I mean, look at this thing. And I like to bring flash with me a lot, right? This thing is a monster. Especially look at this huge lens hood with this lens. I really felt like I was pointing a bazooka at somebody. Um, and then, and I'm zoomed out. It's like, this is massive. But I figured just own it. You're out taking pictures, own it. Have confidence that what you're doing is your craft and you're creating art, you know? Um, I mean, as street photographers, we all have stories, right? About when people are not happy about you taking them picture. But like I said, just own it. Go out there and do your thing with respect, of course. Do your thing as a photographer, as a creator, as an artist. Do your thing. And be careful with your membership activity. That is ruin. Oh, really? Activity in what sense? I mean, I was always reluctant to start a membership on the channel, but I just got asked all the time, about do I have a membership? So and I actually started the membership during a live stream. I went online during the live stream and set up the membership thing because I got asked again why I don't have a membership. So I set it up for the lowest price, 99 cents, right? And with no restrictions on what I'm going to offer. Because I know that you can do tiers. You spend this much. They had all these options in the membership thing. I was like, no, what's the cheapest one? 99 cents. So I picked 99 cents and I get like 60 cents of that. Uh, YouTube takes like 35, 40 cents out of that. And I get the other 60, 60, 65, whatever it is. It's nominal, right? Um, and so if you're referring to pushing the membership, like um, asking for it constantly, right? I mean, I get it, right? We don't want to, we don't want to like say, if you want the good stuff, you have to join. I don't want to do that. But because, like I said, I resisted doing memberships for a long time because I just felt like I was already doing everything I can. I was giving my all, right? Uh, what more could I do if I had a membership? I couldn't think of anything I would do more. So I'm still trying to think of what can I do more for members that are paying 99 cents a month? Because whatever it is, 99 cents, 5.99, whatever you're spending. I mean, I'm spending $16 a month for Netflix, but I'm getting a ton back. I use it a lot, right? So that's why I went with 99 cents because I'm like, what can I do more? And it's more about, I think, for people that want to support what I do here because they appreciate what I do here and they want to be able to contribute in a way other than, say, buying a $5 coffee or sending a donation. Those are also greatly appreciated. But uh, this is just an easy way to do it, I guess. I'm still a little bit like questioning what am I going to do with a membership, right? But now the other part of that, what you're saying here is membership activity. So I'm a little curious, is it something I need to be careful there? Like if I do a live stream, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Because what you see now is what you get with me, whether it's here in the live stream or if I do something with the membership side. So I'm not sure, but that concerns me that the membership activity has ruined Robin Wong. Because Robin Wong is, I have nothing but the highest regards for Robin and what he's doing and the work that he's doing. So, and there's always times when you initially start watching someone and you connect with them, but then they kind of fall out of favor and you unsubscribe, right? I get that. People unsubscribe from my channel all the time. It's, it's just the way it is, and it's fine. Um, but if you've been a long time fan of someone's channel and then they start doing something to where you unsubscribe, we have to you have to investigate that a little bit as the person putting out the content, right? Is this an audience that you don't mind losing because your interests have diverged, right? Like if I started this photography channel and then I started doing cooking and recipes, it totally makes sense if like 90% of my subscribers unsubscribe because they didn't come here for a cooking channel, right? So that's kind of what I mean by how is what is it about membership activity that I need to be careful with? That's kind of the other side of that. So I appreciate the comment and the feedback. Um, and then yeah, Eric has the same question. What's wrong with membership activities? So along those lines, right? Um, okay, let's see. Osmond, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I think that's a super chat. Gosh, that's very generous of you, Osmond. Thank you. It does help, like I said, um, it really helps me to keep going, even though I'm not helping you as a member or someone donating directly. Uh, you're indirectly helping everyone that I'm helping in the comments sections and in the emails that I get and in the field with the photo club. All these things I do uh, help motivate me to keep going and doing all of this for everyone. I mean, I would probably do it anyway, to be honest, because I just love photography. I love helping people, but it just makes a difference knowing that there's people out there that appreciate what I do and support what I do, right? There's a reason for portrait photographers like a soft lens. Yes, absolutely. I actually bought a filter. What do you call it? Black mist filter, because the images were too frickin' sharp on people, and I was like, instead of like doing all this post processing to soften skin, why don't I just put a black mist filter on, and that part of the processing is done, right? let's see, it's a DSLR, it should focus perfect. I know, right? Well, that's the difference was the focusing when I was holding the camera and focusing on Ellie, the images seemed to be tack sharp. But when I was using the app and pointing it at myself, right, I was using the app and the app, you can touch the focus. That's part of the problem is it doesn't focus in real time. You have to pre-focus. Even though I'm using the app, I pre-focus and I have to not move and then push the shutter button on the app. So there might be some micro movement that I'm doing that's throwing it just slightly out of focus. So I've been looking at the remote receivers, but I don't know if the remote receiver or remote shutter buttons, I'm sorry, remote transmitter. Actually, actually the last few images of that series of selfies I did use a remote trigger. I was able to connect. I had to go to the manual and read down here, way down here is the uh, remote trigger plug, and I plugged it in there, and I was able to half press it, focus, and take the picture. And even then, I was still getting slightly soft images. So when I get my new lens in, that's going to be the tell-all. And again, I think it's still a me problem, not a camera problem. So we'll get there. We'll get there. So I went the cheap route. I bought a Canon EOS 1N for $139 and I shoot Tri-X. That's yeah. Ultimately, it's cheaper, right? Because like how many rolls of film and developing can you do with $1,600? Well, 2,000 because I bought a lens. Buy a lot. You can get a lot done. But I feel like I'm going to take a lot more pictures in monochrome than I ever will with black and white film. Gas and foam are dangerous diseases in photography, can affect anyone, even maybe even people you know. Sounds like a public message. If people bought what they needed and didn't buy the hype, most people would shoot some sort of crop. Yep. Yeah, full frame sensors are great, but I don't think most people need it. Most people can just use their phone, honestly. Most people don't even need a camera. I think people underestimate how important the feel and aesthetic of a camera is. I tried Sony for a day in a store, Nikon from a friend, etc., but nothing gives me the same joy as my own 5. Yes, absolutely. That's what I almost switched to Canon because I picked up a Canon R8 and that thing felt like just felt so good in my hand. Uh, but I didn't. I didn't do it. I think about it all the time, though. You have no idea. Almost all Leica cameras and original Leica lenses are made in Germany, Austria, Switzerland. The panel Leica lenses are not. I think some Leica cameras are made in Asia, like from the deluxe cameras. Yes. Yeah, a lot of things are outsourced and just branded, but they're not the true heritage brand, right? G92 or GX92. Oh, you know, that's right. I see, if I'm not careful, I make mistakes like this. I was talking about the G9 Mark II earlier when you asked the question about birding, but I think in your comment or in your question, you said GX9. So the GX9, absolutely, there is no GX9 Mark II, as far as I know. So we have to make the assumption that everything I said earlier about the G9 II is yeah, but thanks for pointing it out. You have to be careful when you're live, right? And Simjon said, I saw an older vlog from you recently where you shortly used an old film Hasselblad. Do you still have it? Use it? It was beautiful. Yeah, I have it. It's right behind me. Um, it's got some Tri-X 400 in it, actually. This is another black and white that I'm going to compare to the Pentax. I just got a fresh roll of Tri-X 400. So I'm going to set, I think I'll set the Pentax to ISO 400 just to match the film speed. I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe I should do both. Yeah, I'll do both. I'll take 2 images with the Pentax since it's free, right? I can take a 200 and a 400, adjust the shutter speed, aperture, make the exposure match, but I'm going to compare it to this because, this is a 6x6, right? Film. And the images from this are amazing. So yes, I still do. It's been a while. I haven't used it, I think, at all this year. God. But I will. I will. Yeah, this is a beautiful camera, isn't it? This was a gas purchase, of course. Nobody needs a Hasselblad, but I have one. Rick F. Hey, Rob, great to see you. You've now added a monochrome camera. You worked on my black and white image a couple of weeks back. It'll be interesting to see how you process them as you have a limited range of options. Yes. And thank you for sending your image for editing. Hopefully I'll get better at it. As there's no color balance or detail to adjust, it's filtered in front of the lens. Now view, yep. Now for you, yeah. I have a red filter, a yellow filter, and a blue filter. And I think I have the 49mm size. I have step rings and things too. I can adapt it if it's not quite right. I got to dig them out of my filter box though. Where is that? It's down here. Oh, it's right here. Let's see. These are the filters that I don't use much. But a whole box of UV filters. Yeah, these are all of no use. Another UV filter. Okay, there's my blue one. This might fit directly on there. If not, I got step rings. Another UV filter, totally useless. Man, these were expensive too. This was one of their higher end Hoyas. Ah, jackpot. Got my red filter. Okay. Now I'm ready for anything. I have a yellow one. I think it's over there. But what's this? No, UV. So this is about, it's probably a couple of dozen UV filters in here. Don't ask me. Don't ask me why. A lot of them came from when I was buying vintage lenses off eBay. They would have the UV filter on it. So that's why I have so many UV filters, basically. It's from buying vintage glass mostly. Most of the UV filters, other than a couple of them, I never used. I didn't buy myself. I bought one for my 20mm f1.8 for my Nikon, and I bought one for, I don't know, I bought a couple, but most of those are just from vintage lenses I've bought over the years. Like these, right? These came with a lens, one of my vintage lenses. I didn't actually have to buy these, thank God. Oof. Anyhow. Ah. Oh, is the GX8 was the first. That's right. Is it right? Probably. You're probably right, Jeff. My mistake. It was the first Olympus 20 megapixel. I think that's where I got confused. The Pen F was the first Olympus 20 megapixel camera, but not the first 20 megapixel Micro Four Thirds. Oh, Chandra Sekar is here. Hi, Robin. All greetings from Singapore. Fuji XM5 got many things right, which OM system is still missing. Hope the next pen will get something right for content creators, hobbyists alike. Any thoughts? Okay, the XM5, okay, just briefly on the XM5 is no EVF is a deal breaker for me because I'm primarily a photographer. Occasional video. Uh, but other than that, it looks like a great camera, right? But yeah, I didn't gas for it at all, ironically. I had no desire to get it because EVF is a huge, huge deal breaker for me on most cameras. And that camera, even though it's very small and compact, you know, it's not much bigger than, say, my TG5, which has no viewfinder, right? But I'm not putting giant lenses on it or high-end glass on these other cameras that don't have an EVF. The XM5 is a camera that you can put on really, really good glass on that. And just not having an EVF for me and having like this spectacular glass on there, there's a disconnect for that in my brain. So that's kind of, I mean, it's just me, right? Again, it's a me problem, but that to me is why I don't have any gas for the XM5. As far as the next camera from OM Systems, if they come out with a pen camera, yeah, that's pretty stiff competition because the pen camera is already $700-800, and they don't have half the things this XM5 does. So OM System has got a big nut to crack if they're going to compete with the XM5 with a pen camera. If they come out with a Pen F, that's more like X100V, X106, right? Type competition. But the pen line would have to be the competition for this XM5, and I doubt it's gonna happen. That's just too big a nut to crack to go from the current pen EPL10 to go to an XM5 level of features. I don't see how they can do it. Uh, they're just not big enough, right? If they were huge, you know, then maybe. And I'm surprised Fuji even came out with a camera like this, to be honest, because they're not that big either. But they're still cranking out cameras like crazy, right? But OM Systems is, I think, probably smaller than Fuji. I don't know the numbers, but they have a long way to go. I would be surprised if they do. The only exception to that would be the reason I say I would be surprised because my expectation is an OM10, like a replacement to the M10 series. That's my expectation for the next camera. But if they come out with a new camera, a new pen, uh, I would be ecstatic, right? That could compete with an XM5 and do all the things the XM5 does and more, right? The live comp, high-res shot, you know, better autofocus because apparently Fuji's having trouble with that now. Um, so those are my thoughts. Like, I would love it if they came out with a new pen. The pens don't have EVFs. If they came out with a pen that could compete with that, that would be great. I don't know how well it would do though. Remains to be seen. Says, I've used the Olympus picture mode. It's not as useful as Fuji's film simulation. Yeah, I guess that's a subjective choice, right? I would agree with you. I think the um, different picture modes that Olympus offers, including the art filters, We should be back now. What was the last thing I said? Man, I was going on. I should have been paying attention to that. All right. Let me check. What time did it start? Muted at 12:14. Okay, so you got most of that, I think. So, uh, Vermis, I hope you got most of what I said. I was probably just repeating myself the last couple of minutes anyway. But yeah, basically, Fujifilm has a lot of history to draw on and research in color science when they developed that and put it into the digital age. Whereas Canon, Nikon, Sony, they are they're just trying to figure out what's popular as far as what kind of art filters or film simulations can we try to create that might be kind of popular. So it's more of a marketing thing. Whereas I think Fujifilm actually is, they have that history to draw on, and they have a lot of experience in color science. So looking at an image from Fujifilm film simulations is not a simple popularity contest like it is, I think, with the other cameras. With Fujifilm, they actually have a huge history and heritage and science behind all of their film simulations that it's not just, it's not a simple thing. And it's very, very difficult to replicate manually. It says, my wife had a Canon F100S and large dust blob on all the images. I got a Dyson vacuum cleaner and put it over the lens, turned it on briefly, and presto, yep, that's been a very popular way to get rid of dust off a sensor where you can't remove the lens is just use a vacuum cleaner and suck it out, right? Oh, can you buy 12 months in advance for your no, month at a time. And oh yeah, so Rick is going on repeating what I said basically. The rich history of filmmaking, take advantage of their simulations. They can reference their most popular films. Again, they have that color science history because they had to make the film, literally. And the Gray Vanzini, good to see you. Um, Thank you for being here every week, almost every single stream, including the editing and my shopping streams. And Robin says, Robin Wong does some members only content. That may be a turnoff for some people. He still does free streams and gives a lot of good advice. Okay. Well, it's hard to like charge somebody extra than not do something extra though, right? So I kind of get where he's coming from by doing member only type stuff. But yeah, I was kind of with I forget who was talking about it. Doing memberships it's tricky for me anyway. I'm having a hard time with it, coming up with good stuff for members. Like, I know it's only 99 cents, but if you're going to give me a penny, I try to give you back 10 times more what I do. And all I can say now is that if you do 99 cents, it supports everything that I do for everyone, not maybe the member specifically, but just that you appreciate what I do. And that's why you become a member. Um, Darko says 20 megapixels on either Z50 or D500, even cropping a bit for social media is plenty. But if I can have 45, boy, oh boy, gas is boiling just thinking about it. Don't worry about it. Okay, let me give you a link. Uh, Give me a second. Just go to my comparisons album here. Where's a share button here? I got I've got a ton of comparisons of high-res shot mode, high-res cameras like my Sony, my S1R, my XH2 against the OM1. No, I believe it was the OM1 for the most part. Comparing all of those, right? High-res shot mode of the S1R. So I was getting like what 200 megapixel images, all kinds of stuff. You might have to dig down a little bit or scroll down a bit, but it's all there. And that should alleviate your gas some because there's not that much difference in an actual image. When you pixel peep, yeah, you can see it. You can crop more. But if you frame your picture correctly, you know, you fill the frame with your composition, whatever it might be. I'm not saying fill the frame with the subject because that's just my style, but fill the frame with your composition to begin with, whatever that might be. Doesn't matter what resolution your sensor is. Could be 10 megapixels, honestly. And I forget, I'm trying to see where I left off. Audio died at 12:07, so you missed most of my Fujifilm. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Vermes, and everyone. That was a really good, man. That's one of my best Fujifilm, like, uh, not rant, but like praise ever. I was praising the heck out of the Fujifilm simulations, even though I don't use them. But long story short, I guess I can be concise. They're really good, and they have a lot of rich history behind it, and they did a lot of work in color science. You know, they know their stuff when it comes to colors, basically. Okay. Says with your collection of cameras, would you have one hell of a photographer garage? I know. You know, I sometimes wonder though if this is all just junk, and when I die, they're gonna throw it away. You know, because it's just getting to where most people are just using their cell phone to take pictures, and they're like, anybody that inherits my stuff, they're gonna be like, what am I gonna do with all this junk? Not appreciating everything that went into making the various purchasing decisions, right? And the craftsmanship and the workmanship that goes into making a camera, and just looking at it from a practical point of view, what am I going to do with all this junk? I know, it's just terrible. And Andrew Cho is asking, how would EM1 Mark II for $500 be a good buy? It's fair. EM1 Mark III for $719, that's way better. Definitely get the Mark III over the Mark II. The 200 bucks is worth it. I think 500 bucks is fair. It's not the best deal I've ever seen, but it's fair. That's about the going price. 719 for an E1 Mark III is a stellar price. You're getting a basically refurb or open box, the M1 Mark III. Substantially, what's better is the image stabilization is better than the M1 Mark II. The handheld high-res shot, handheld live ND, EM1 Mark II doesn't have it. So uh, that's and the autofocus for face detect, way better, EM1 Mark III. Those are the practical differences. IBIS, face detect, handheld, high-res, live ND. All of those things are well worth it because otherwise you have to drag a tripod with you everywhere. You can get the same results on an EM1 Mark II, but you have to drag a tripod with you everywhere. And I use the high-res shot mode, not all the time, but often enough that having handheld high-res shot mode is definitely worth the ticket of admission here. And um, Live ND, handheld, also very, very not useful. You don't have to bring a tripod. Starry Sky AF, if you want to do Milky Way shots. And so there's a lot of things in the M1 Mark III that the M1 Mark II does not have. Ultimately, they're going to take the same picture, but one, you have to bring a tripod all the time, or you'll have to bring a tripod to do certain types of photography that you could probably do handheld with the M1 Mark III. And then last is the face detect. The face detect is markedly improved in the M1 Mark III. So if you take pictures of people, um, you don't have to be a portrait photographer, but if you take pictures of people, you will definitely appreciate, because you pretty much have to fill the frame for the eye detect to work on the M1 Mark II. It'll detect the face from pretty far away, but to go right onto the eye, you have to be kind of framed about like I am here in this live stream. If they're standing back a little bit, like you're doing a full body shot, EM1 Mark III will do it. EM1 Mark II will not in terms of eye detect, face detect. Let's hope Fuji has their AF figured out after my XH2S. Oh, yeah. Like I said, I ain't updating my firmware till it gets fixed. Whatever it is, I may never update it again. It's working fine as it is. The only reason I'd have to update it is if, I need a certain lens to work with it, but I have all the lenses I'd ever want for it too. So I may never have to upgrade my firmware, but if they come out with an autofocus system that's supposedly been fixed and good, I will update it. Why not, right? We all want better autofocus. And the XM5 has no state. Thank you for that reminder. The the Pen series had image stabilization, 3-axis, limited as it may be, is still better than none, right? Oh, lost sound at 12:06. Let me check. Yeah, mic is still good. Oh, live stream the joys. I know. I'm so sorry, everyone. So I was talking for almost 10 minutes. Almost dropped the F-bomb. Wow. All right. Some good news. Rick, welcome to the club. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. And I will do my best as always. I appreciate it. Um, let's see. I think that was a question answered. Ask to be in Rob's will. Someone put me in their will for their camera gear, though. I'll tell you that much. I'll probably die before them, but if I do put someone in my will, I know who I'm gonna. Well, he wouldn't even want my stuff. That would be, yeah. I don't know. Anyway, we got more than our money's worth at 99 cents, Rob. You do an outstanding job. You're a great inspiration for us aspiring. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Jeff, Jeff's been, Jeff's been such a good supporter, whether participating in the stream here or in the comments section for many years. And I know his credentials. I don't like to advertise, and name drop, but he has really strong credentials. So it's very, very flattering to get this kind of praise from somebody with the credentials that I know he has. I'm flattered by any compliment or kind words that I get from anybody, always, right? But it's always like it just means it's just a little surprising when you get it from somebody that has the credentials that he has. So thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And this side towards screens, I've been introducing my camera collection, but I'm not intending them to sell them. I'm looking for people that will use them, but it is hard to get people interested in older I know. I know. Uh, I mean, I would love to gift some of my cameras eventually. Right now, I'm I'm a kind of a hoarder, but like I would love to gift my cameras to family, like my nephews, if they liked photography, but they're not really into it. And Mark Schneider, thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. My goodness. Thank you for becoming a member and supporting the work that I do here. And I'll try and do a little extra for members when I can, if I think of something. It's hard. Like I said, I always try to give my all as it is. And it looks like I caught up. Probably everybody left after the sound dropped, right? So that's why I'm caught up now, because there's like 10 minutes of like, your mic is off, your mic is off, your mic is off. It's kind of like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Oh, man. I haven't had a big faux pas on live streams in a while. It's bound to happen. Time is, man, 3 hours. I feel like I owe you guys 10 more minutes though. But okay, stuff happens, right? I know stuff happens. So okay, actually, I guess I'll call it unless anybody has any other questions. I'll give the chat 1 more minute to catch up because it's about a 1 minute delay on this. And plus I'm getting hungry. It's like lunchtime here. It's 12:30. I know Ellie's hungry. Well, she's not actually, because I got an automatic feeder for her. But she's always hungry like me. Maybe I know what we'll do. We'll go to I love doing this, is we'll go to the oh, it's Sunday though. So I like to go to Chick-fil-A and just get the kids meal, because you can get the kids meal for $7, which is like the cheapest thing on the menu, to get a fries, drink, and some chicken nuggets. And I'll give her the chicken nuggets and I'll eat the fries. But instead of a toy, you can substitute a vanilla cone, vanilla ice cream instead of a toy. The vanilla cone is $3 by itself. So I'm getting the Happy Meal or the kids meal and the vanilla cone for $7. And Ellie gets the chicken nuggets, I get the fries. One of my guilty pleasures is like salty, something like French fries, something salty with something sweet together, right? So French fries and vanilla ice cream. I know it sounds like something you would eat when you're high, but I love it. I love it. I love French fries and vanilla ice cream together. I don't mix them together. I mean, I eat the fries, have some ice cream. So, oh, Marked Wolf. Okay, answer. Considered the wedding. Okay, so let me back up to that. Basically, what I said is, the question was, what would you look for in a professional photographer for a wedding? And my answer was, basically you would vet a professional photographer like you would any other professional, right? Check their references, um, and make sure they're licensed, insured, and really vet them like you would any other professional. Do they have an online website? Look at their portfolio, see if you like the images, and then also consider their style, right? Do they have a very specific style that you want or that the couple wants, right? So what I was saying was that what's popular now is sort of like this muted, very high contrast, very tack sharp type images for weddings. Seems to be kind of popular now. But other photographers might have a style that's very soft and warm and dreamy, right? And then other photographers might be um, something else, right? Black and white. So look at their portfolio, see that there's a consistency to their style and imagery that they deliver. Check their references, license, insurance, uh, because you want a professional. You don't want them to show up late or not show up at all, right? So you want to make sure the references and reference their references. You know what I mean? Make sure that these are actual clients that you're calling. So you have to vet them, right? Because whoever's going to be spending a lot of money potentially for a photographer. So vet them for their professional side like you would any other professional, and then look at their portfolio and see if it's the style that is going to match what the couple is looking for. Okay. So gotta admit, I like regular McFlurry with my grease and salt value. Yeah, that's right. See, I'm not the only one. And Puja says, hello from New York City. What do you think about old school UV filters? Do they apply to digital? Okay, so I think this was another one might have got missed during the muted section. And that is no UV filters. I had a whole box of them. Just I take them off all of my lenses. The only reason I have a whole box is I buy a lot of vintage lenses, and they come with UV filters on them. Or if I buy lenses online, not necessarily vintage, they include the UV filter a lot of times, and I take them off. The only time I would use a UV filter is if I want to specifically protect the front element of a lens. And the last lens that I used the UV filter on was my 20 millimeter f1.8 from Nikon, because it had a huge, I think it was a 72 millimeter filter ring with a huge lens on the front. So you want to buy a very high quality UV filter. The only brand that I'm familiar with that is high quality, that you don't have to worry about degrading your image quality, because that's another problem, is B&W. So you get a B&W UV filter for whatever lens you're going to put it on, and you should be good to protect your front element. These days now, I use mostly just a lens hood to protect the front element, and I never use a UV filter ever, because I just buy the cheap ones. You know how cheap I am. I buy the cheap ones when I buy filters, and when I bought the filter for my Nikon glass, I bought a really good one. I can't remember what it was now. It's probably a B&W, but I bought a very good UV filter for it, and I didn't have any problems with image quality. And it's less dominant. Image quality problems are less noticeable on wide-angle lenses because the field of view is so wide anyway. You're not getting too many pixels on any particular thing in the image. But on telephoto lenses, man, oh man, you really want to avoid a UV filter if at all possible, and protect the front element with a hood of some kind. And with a telephoto, you can easily put a long hood on them, right? But with wide angle lenses, it's harder to get a deep hood. So a UV filter on a wide angle lens, a high quality one, would be acceptable if you want to protect the front element. But my first instinct is not to use a UV filter at all, and they're not relevant. In terms of blocking UV light, in that respect, it doesn't do anything either, because the sensor has a UV filter on top anyway, along with other filters like infrared, stuff like that. But uh, it has a UV filter on it anyway. So blocking UV light from your digital sensor is almost pointless. Now, I have seen images where with and without a UV filter, and there's a very, very subtle difference, okay, with respect to color, because UV filter tends to kind of tint your images blue, I believe. There are some very subtle differences uh, that I saw in one image, but that image was from a company selling UV filters, okay? So you have to take that with a huge grain of salt, but that's my opinion on UV filters. So I'm getting hungry too, so thank you for the stream. Thank you for coming in, Rick. I appreciate it. Let's see. So I guess that's it. I just missed the one question. You missed most of my Fuji praise about their filters. And I think I answered the other question here. So if I didn't miss anyone else's questions, oh, one last thing here. Okay. Can you shoot your own pre-wedding photos yourself? Also suggested suggestions for non-cringe poses. Um, I I don't know about wedding photography etiquette, because I'm not a wedding photographer, never have been. But I know lots of people that tell me they just took like the Uncle Rob took the pictures. Uncle Rob it's not, there's always somebody in the family that has a nice camera. Maybe you in this case that is going to take pictures at the wedding. Now, I went to a wedding as a guest and I took lots of pictures as a guest, but I stayed out of the way. I didn't try to get the money shots, like, push the professional photographer out of the way. And, you got to have certain etiquette and be polite and let the professional do their job, but you shouldn't have any problem taking your own pictures there. I've done it and I've seen videos of people talking about wedding photography, going to weddings and taking pictures that had a professional photographer already. So I don't think there's any issue. I think it's fine, but you could ask the photographer before they come on site and say, I want to take some pictures too, right? Uh, do you mind? And just clarify, you're going to stay out of the way. You're not going to try and grab the money shot that they're doing, and you're not, yeah, and therefore, and it's because maybe it's your sister or somebody in your family is getting married. So it would just be for them. It's not like you're trying to publish and steal any of the prints or print money. I don't know how photographers make money and wedding photographers necessarily make money if they're selling prints on top of the. You're not trying to do that. So just make it clear your intent that you want to get some shots that maybe he might miss, for your own personal use and for the family to have fun. And I don't think it'll be a problem. My Hunt's photo guy said only use the protection filter and not the UV on digital. That makes sense. So they sell filters that are not UV, but are like just hardened glass to protect the front element. You could do that, right? Um, but I think the point here to the question the other person asks is UV filters are basically useless. Most UV filters now are used as protection filters, but now you can just buy it as a protection filter and it doesn't have to have the UV element in it at all. And love the new jacket. Are those actual service patches from the US military? No, no. This is a Star Trek jacket from uh, Star Trek. So this is my Halloween costume. No, it's not military. My dad was military. I was not. Um, so if you look at the screen here, this is what I have. Oh, that's a sweat jacket. But yeah, this one, $75. Man, price has gone up. I bought mine many years ago. I think I paid like 40 bucks. Of course, it's that time of year too, right? But if you want one, uh, let me give you my affiliate link. There you go. It's a great jacket. I added these little pips. This is actually from another Star Trek uniform I have. So this is a little bit out of uh, uh, not what's the word I'm looking for. This is from a different generation. These pips, these go with the next generation, but the jacket itself is pretty close, pretty authentic to the one in the series. All right, you guys have a great weekend. What's left of it. I will be back most likely maybe tomorrow or Tuesday. I'm going to Pennsylvania to shoot the 150 to 400 with my buddy Ben. So I I gotta kind of coordinate deliveries I'm expecting coming in versus going up there. Uh, but yeah, I'll be back again soon, and I hope to see all of you back again soon. And thank you to all of the support I got today through memberships, through the coffees or donations. They're greatly appreciated. Um, and I will definitely put my time to good best use I can to help everyone.